Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 804 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are talking all things NXT and AEW, but not only that. We have vintage Chris Vanini joining the show to talk WWE Crown Jewel and some major storylines that happened on WWE television this week. The Silver King is going to review the top matches from TNA Bound for Glory 2025 in a not-so-instant analysis segment. And at the end of the show, we're going to have your AEW WrestleDream 2025 Ultimate Preview. So there is so much freaking content on the way. We literally do not have any time to waste. Off the top, allow the Silver King to remind you that this show
is all about the five.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. On Twitter and Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, and all of that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show. Vote in our pre- and post-show polls around WrestleDream. This weekend on YouTube, you get full-length audio episodes, full-length video interviews as well across the board at Getting Overcast. Like I said, we're talking WWE, TNA, NXT, and AEW all on this show.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
And when I said loaded, I meant loaded because we have a ton of news to talk about here. A wave of NXT releases and non-renewals hit late last week. The biggest names were non-renewals. Just to be clear about that, WWE, they're doing what many asked. They're not releasing as much anymore, which is largely a positive, even though, of course, people are losing their jobs and we don't like that. The list is highlighted by Wesley, Ridge Holland, Stevie Turner, and Lance Anawahi. Some other Evolve, LFG, and PC talents were released. Jin Tala, Draco Knox, Hayes Jamison, BJ Ray, Jamar Hampton. On that latter group, Jin Tala, she just has a presence about her, man. I was super interested in her at the start of the first LFG season. I haven't finished that, by the way, nor have I gotten to season 2, but I do intend to because I do enjoy that show. But I guess WWE didn't see the quality development from her that they expected. I hope she goes out on the independents, kills it, gets trained somewhere else, maybe makes it back to WWE, goes to AEW, TNA, maybe she becomes a TNA knockout. There is something with Jin Tala. I think she can make it work. Hampton, the dude completely looked the part, had a sick athletic background. Another surprise, but again, don't know the details. BJ Ray being released was no surprise to me whatsoever. The dude just never had it. His whole gimmick of like purposely being someone people hate, it wore thin before it even started. And Awahi, I believe he had injury issues and just really didn't live up to the name. Hate to say it. Turner, she wanted to keep wrestling. WWE was not about to let her continue wrestling. I guess given her knee injuries and stuff, they put her in a GM type role, whatever. The notables are Wesley and Holland. For me, Wes is a case of close but no cigar. Back in the day, he would have been called up just to be called up. He'd have languished, and then he would have gotten released. NXT Creative kind of lost the plot with him with the heel turn. Should have flipped him back face after the Rascals feud. Then the dude went and cut his hair. And like, we really shouldn't think of a wrestler that superficially, but it took away the last remaining piece about him that was interesting. You got behind the underdog aspect and his look and all that. And then they took away the underdog and they took away the look. And you just had a guy who does cool moves and really wasn't convincing as a heel. It's unfortunate. Wes was a great NXT mid-card babyface. He's still the longest reigning North American champion of all time, I believe. He's a great tag team wrestler too. It's shocking to me WWE could not have found him a partner. But to be fair, I'm surprised he had as much success as he did without Zach Wentz once he got fired. I can't imagine him going anywhere but back to TNA, where he might be a big deal because he'll have the WWE rub. Maybe he can be a TNA champion over there. I don't know. But I think him going back to TNA makes a lot of sense. Holland's situation is different. He was not renewed while injured after getting hurt in a TNA match against Moose. He announced WWE is paying for his rehab, but then he kind of, I don't want to say it this way, Kind of goes into pity party mode, saying he's not going to be employed while rehabbing, so he can't earn money for his family and kids. I got a couple things here, man. First, there are jobs you can do, plenty of jobs you can do that are not wrestling and don't require a degree. The guy lives in Orlando. Clubs, strip clubs, they need bouncers. He could easily bounce. You don't even have to work at one of those places. You can go to like Topgolf, which needs security and shit, okay? Not to mention remote work. There are ways to earn money. Second, if WWE released him while injured, okay, I'd be on board with like the anger and hate, FTKO, right? But his contract expired, man. Is WWE supposed to sign him to a new contract simply because he's hurt? That's not what happens in professional athletics, if we want to make that comparison. If you're injured in week 15 and your contract is up, you don't work the next year. Like if you tear an ACL or something like that, you probably don't work the following season, and then you train and get better, and then you get to work. Like that's how it goes. Now, look, if it was my multi-billion-dollar company, would I have floated the guy some additional money? Hey, you're going to be out for 6 months. Here's $50K extra, $75K extra. Take care of your family. Sure. But I believe there's like a legal murky area about doing that, almost as if like you're admitting fault by paying money that you don't otherwise have to, and then you can get sued on the back end of that. Again, I speak to some of these things. I always clarify, I am not a lawyer, but I do have a pretty good sense of legality, and I believe there's some type of issue there, but please correct me if I'm wrong. The facts are, the timing absolutely sucks for him. And that's pretty much it. One other point, because people keep calling these releases, and some are, but many were not. Everyone wanted WWE to allow wrestlers to get paid through the end of their contracts. Now that they're doing that, you don't just get to go around and say they're releasing people when that's not factually accurate. I promise you, Ridge Holland, if WWE was in full release mode, he would have been cut months ago. And yeah, he would not have gotten injured, but he also wouldn't have been paid. And if he had gotten injured, wouldn't have had his rehab covered, like if it happened in training or something like that. But yes, WWE is releasing some people. Others they are letting expire, and they're not renewing. What they're doing is not re-signing them. That's okay. That's business. No one is guaranteed employment anywhere, particularly as wrestling independent contractors. By the way, there are also a ton of those WWE ID talents who have exited, including some of the top names that WWE signed. Zeta Steele, Bryce Donovan are among the ones that come to mind initially. The program's not being closed. New signings are coming. I'm not sure the rhyme or reason for some of the decision-making here. I just cannot speak to it. I guess in some cases, it's the talents deciding they don't want to be part of it anymore, thinking they're a little bit too handcuffed. Maybe some of it's WWE too. I actually believe it's more the former than the latter. Moving on, Darby Allin did an interview with Ariel Helwani that I don't really have time to discuss on today's show, really, but there was one moment where he was handed a cup of water, hot water, by like a stage producer, and he takes it, he looks at it, and then he just pours it on himself. And that moment specifically showed me why AEW struggles to hit the mainstream and why Darby is so pigeonholed as a character. The dude is acting in 2025 like it's 1998, when like Tom Green and Johnny Knoxville would do all this off-the-wall shit, and it was looked at it so crazy and anti-authority that it was cool. It's 2025. We're desensitized to stuff like this. And it really just boils down to Darby, in this case, being like stupid for attention. We all knew those kids in high school or middle school. The kids who would like eat a worm or like brought the Satanic Bible on a field trip to a museum or tried to emulate the Jackass guys by doing crazy shit. That's Darby Allin, except he's 32 years old and it's 2025. You can still be edgy and ride your skateboard and wear your makeup and do hardcore spots. But can we act like an adult? He's acting now like when he was 26 and AEW started. Even at 26, a lot of this is juvenile, but at least you can say the dude's in his 20s. You're 32 years old, bro. Like, don't go on a major interview show and pour hot water on yourself purposefully. Because what, you're a badass? Like, what are we doing here, man? The big story making the rounds this week involves Andrade, who you'll remember was fired from WWE for cause, but showed up on AEW Dynamite 2 weeks ago attacking Kenny Omega. Well, Andrade has not been seen on AEW TV since, which has led to a bunch of consternation and reporting around his status. The report that made me laugh individually stated that, well, Andrade's not on TV, but his absence is not his fault, nor is it AEW's fault, which meant the writer was either trying to blame it on visa issues, which is almost a catch-all for when, international talent is not on TV, yet WWE, by the way, doesn't have as many of these issues. Or more specifically, they were trying to blame it on WWE because it's always WWE at fault for everything, of course. Now, there's a lot that's unclear about this situation, so I don't want to provide too definitive an opinion on anything, okay? The long and short of it, though, is that historically, WWE has a 90-day release clause. These are not non-compete clauses because WWE pays salary for 90 days, but it takes the person off TV. The wrestlers can choose to waive that pay and get their release, but most of them do not because it's free money for not working. That applies when a wrestler is released without cause, just as a business decision. Most of you who have lost jobs that are listening to this, you were fired without cause. They decided you weren't doing well enough. You were replaced. They downsized your position, whatever the case might be. You did not do anything to violate a contract you signed with a company. Andrade, when his firing was outlined, let's say, it was said he was fired with cause. The actual cause is only hearsay at this point. Some have said he failed multiple wellness checks. Some have said he ghosted WWE when they were ready to bring him back. Some said he refused to do certain stuff on television. It could be all of that and or something else. But regardless of the reason, the story from the beginning has been that Andrade was fired for cause. He breached his contract. There is separate language that applies when you breach a contract and get fired. In non-wrestling jobs, you can lose guarantees, bonuses, vacation pay, items the company has purchased for you, like a car, technology for your house. When you sign a contract, you do not want to get fired for cause. Similarly, when you sign a contract, you and your lawyer should know exactly what happens when you do get fired for cause. And when you are someone who runs a competing business in the industry, you should be going through the new hire's old contract to determine whether you are actually able to hire them after they were fired for cause. This is Business 101. Forget wrestling. Business 101. So while WWE may have language in Andrade's contract that prevents him from working on American television, and that would be shitty, both in general and of them individually, that's the contract Andrade signed. It's the contract AEW did not bother to read. Andrade tried to force his way out of the company, seemingly, without knowing the effects of doing so. If you want to blame WWE, I mean, go ahead. I don't care. But all three parties are at fault in this particular situation. The most at fault being Andrade for allegedly breaching his contract and then not knowing what that meant for him as a worker. But also both AEW for just throwing him on TV, trying to make a splash, and then sure, WWE for having such harsh language in there if you want to take this from a workers' rights standpoint, and I don't blame you if you do. But to suggest that this isn't Andrade's fault, it's not AEW's fault, no, it is. Because when you sign a contract, you agree to certain terms. And that's regardless of whether you believe the language in the contract will hold up in court if it gets that far or whatever the case might be. That's irrelevant. We're talking about him getting fired for cause, leaving that job, possibly forcing his way out, immediately going on AEW TV because he believed something when it was outlined in his contract that he could have read, his lawyer could have read, and AEW could have read. It says otherwise. You don't have to like it, but you should know better. Here at the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, we do know better. We also hope that you know.
I happen to love the number 5.
You got to love that transition. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We're a free show. We're an ad-free show. We would greatly appreciate your financial support, and you get a bunch of extras too. Now, as I said, we have plenty of fresh content that will be streaming its way into your ear holes during this episode of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. But before we get to that, I don't know, let's open the pantry, grab a piece of stale bread that is vintage Chris Vanini here on Thursday to talk about things that we discussed already on Tuesday. Obviously, I'm just kidding. Something came up in Vintage's life. He was not able to join the WWE show as originally scheduled, but some major stuff happened over the last few days in the world of WWE. You heard what the Silver King had to say about it on our Crown Jewel instant analysis, on our WWE episode Tuesday, taking a second look at Crown Jewel, and of course, discussing the big content item coming out of Monday Night Raw with the Vision turning on Seth Rollins. So let's bring in Vintage, get his take on all of that and more in the world of WWE. Chris, how's everything going with you? Are you excited to, I don't know, I want to say be back in the saddle, but you're not really back in the saddle. This isn't Tuesday's episode, you know?
Hi, hello, hi, yes, hello. How's it going? Yeah, been a minute. I know I've been infrequent on this pod.
Not all your fault. Not all your fault.
Some of it you're scheduling, some of it my scheduling. I don't remember if I said this on the show last week or not, but my wife got busted open the hard way last week. Literally the night of Raw, she ran into a fence post while out at the park with the dogs, knocked herself out. I had to go pick her up. She looked like Cody Rhodes blading. Thankfully, she was mostly okay, but she had a broken nose, and that surgery was on Monday. So that took up most of my day. No, I'm sorry. Surgery was on Tuesday.
Right. If it was Monday, you would have been on
Tuesday.
The show. Right.
Yes. Tuesday, I couldn't do the show. And then yesterday we had to take her to another doctor for a thing. She's doing all right, but that's where that happened. You know, could have just used the blood capsule, but she's doing all right. Anyway, That's where we're at. A lot's happened. Crown Jewel's happened.
A lot's happened.
The Vision broke up has happened, and I got a lot of thoughts.
I'm sure you do. So I want to tell two brief medical stories myself, one that is directly related to what you told about your wife, and another that I meant to tell on the show, I want to say 2 weeks ago. We got multiple specific requests for the Silver King to tell his story about how he split open his eyebrow exactly the same way as Jade Cargill did. Obviously, I didn't do it into steel steps. I actually did it into something way worse and way more dangerous. But let me briefly tell those two stories real quick. We'll get into all your stuff. So the Jade Cargill eyebrow-ish story, right? So what I tweeted when that happened is that exact same injury happened to me. Literally the same eyebrow, the same part of my eyebrow. If you look at any picture of me, you will see there's like a scar going through my eyebrow that actually, I don't mind how it looks. It does look kind of cool, but certainly I wish the incident didn't happen.
And it happened when you got hit with the moonsault, right?
I wish it happened in and around the squared circle. That would have been probably a better story, less embarrassing story to tell. This is an embarrassing story. So the long and short of it, I was in middle school. I want to say 8th grade in whatever class I was in. And I'm not a big like sight of blood, I'm okay with it guy, which is probably one of the reasons I hate all like the gore AEW does sometimes, even though that doesn't bother me. Seeing it on screen is okay. When it's my own, you know, I'm the you made me bleed my own blood type of guy, except instead of getting angry at you, I'm just going to pass out and freak out. So I was in 8th grade. I don't remember what was happening. I was like sitting at a desk in a class, touching something underneath the desk. And all of a sudden, I like moved my hand out from underneath the desk and my hand was cut open, like gushing blood.
Oof.
I stand up. I told you, it's a really embarrassing story. I stand up to like go to the nurse and like whatever. And all of a sudden I had like, oh, I don't feel well. And I fall backwards, hit my head on a metal handle of a door, like a drawer, like a hard metal handle, completely split open my head right through the eyebrow. Ended up having to go to the hospital. I got something like 70 stitches inside and out. They called a plastic surgeon in because they needed to make sure like it was sutured in a way that didn't like maim my face for the remainder of my life or whatever the case. But yeah, it was something, I want to say like 30 internal stitches, 40 external stitches just to close it up. I was back at school. We had our big 8th grade dance a week later. You know, it ended up not being a big deal, like in terms of people didn't make fun of me. I was still, you know, had friends and like But when something like that happens and you're in 8th grade, you're like, oh my God, my life is over. Like, this is the most embarrassing thing ever. So that was that. And then the second story, much quicker. So the only time that I had a crimson type mask situation was I was like just horsing around with like some of my fraternity brothers. We had like cinder block walls in our fraternity house. Like that was just the style. Just really like, almost like you're in an asylum now that I think about it. Like we decorated it and shit, but whatever. But we were horsing around, whatever. And we often would put on wrestling matches in the fraternity house. Me and a guy, like literally through a table, pinfalls, submissions, whole deal, just like horsing around. And I charged at someone and they like basically moved away. And my head went face first into the cinder block wall. My nose starts gushing blood, full crimson mask. Obviously not from the forehead, but like down, like I look like a wolf, I guess, like someone who like bit someone and it's just bleeding from the mouth and nose and stuff. I go into the bathroom, I clean it up, whatever. I don't know how, miraculous, whatever the case might be. It stopped bleeding in 30 seconds and nose didn't hurt, didn't go to the hospital, didn't break anything. Something just happened and then went away. I can't explain it. Maybe a doctor out there can. But it was disgusting. And the amount of blood. Now that didn't make me pass out. I was totally fine with that. But the amount of blood I had to clean up in that situation, I can't even imagine it being worse than that.
It's kind of like when the wrestlers just stop bleeding in the match, and then it like gets kind of like dry on them. Like, it doesn't go forever. So.
Yeah, like maybe I just hit one thing and then it closed up immediately because it got not clogged, whatever that word is called.
Clotted.
Clotted. Yes, thank you. I'm clearly not a doctor. But yeah, those are my two stories regarding Jade Cargill's most recent injury and your wife's most recent injury that are somewhat applicable and embarrassing.
And a less bloody injury that we may have to talk about in pro wrestling too.
Yes, and it does kind of offer a nice segue, I should say, into something like that. So let's get to the reason we're here, which is actually not my stories of medical trauma, but Vintage's takes on the most recent happenings in the world of WWE. Chris, we're not going to do a whole like second look at WWE Crown Jewel. Let me just kind of get your overall takes on 3 different topics. Number 1, yes. John Cena, AJ Styles. Here on the show, I gave the match a 5-star rating. I reaffirmed that on the second look. To me, it's a match of the year contender, super special. What were your thoughts coming out of that match?
It was really awesome. I have to be honest, and I didn't have the same feeling because I didn't see it live. This is the value of watching pro wrestling live. The first thing I saw was a clip on Twitter of the Sister Abigail.
You did it to yourself.
And then I saw a couple of clips and I listened to the podcast and everything you said about it. And so I knew most about it going in. So I can't like lie and say I had the same feelings just because of that nature. But if I did, I probably would have had the same feelings as you. And it's exactly what I said going into the preview show, which was just like, I kind of want to get back to just appreciating and celebrating John Cena as we kind of wrap this up. And that's what this was. And it was fantastic, or just a really good, also just like a good match, by the way. Both these guys can still very much go. I loved all the TNA stuff for AJ. I didn't know the Australia TNA connection that you noted on the podcast there, so that was really cool. I do hope AJ Styles gets his own sort of farewell, good, valuable farewell whenever that happens next year. And ultimately, like, it really was such a waste to not have a good build up and a story to this, to just do it over Twitter, to basically say we're only doing this because the fans wanted it, which implies that the fans don't want the other stuff that you're doing, which is true. And to not really have enough of a video package or something like that. Like, this will ultimately be one of the top things we remember from his retirement run, Cena's. And it just happened on a whim, and that was kind of disappointing on that front, but the two of them absolutely delivered.
Yeah, that's the general problem and kind of what I was getting to talking about here on the show, which is that if you look at John Cena's retirement run as a list of moments, it works a lot better than thinking about it in its totality, its progression from January all the way through now, because the progression doesn't make sense. Really, everything from the first couple promos after Elimination Chamber until SummerSlam, which is the majority of this run, it's just frustrating. And we're not going to necessarily ever get over that. But if you look at the individual moments the Royal Rumble match, being the one who Jay eliminated on his way to becoming World Heavyweight Champion, the promo he cut after that, Elimination Chamber, the actual turn, the work he did in that match, the CM Punk feud, those television segments, as well as their match. Certainly the match with Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam, the match itself, not the build, not the storyline, any of that stuff. Although that final segment was pretty good as well, even though it was just convoluted the way they just reversed course on the story. And now this with AJ Styles, there's a lot of great individual moments. The problem is there's so much other stuff in there that's frustrating. Most of the heel gimmick in general, the Logan Paul feud in totality, the Brock Lesnar return, and then the Brock Lesnar match were just like, why? Still now, why? They haven't done anything with Lesnar coming out of that. So that's the problem. It's, they took something that should have been, for someone like John Cena, a 10 out of 10, perfectly planned retirement run. And at the end, when you look at it in totality, you're probably going to say it's like a 6.5, with individual moments that in a silo are 10s. And for me, this was one of those 10 out of 10, 5-star out of 5-star moments.
Yeah, and I can totally agree with that. So we'll see where it goes from there. Like you said, like I've said this for years. Anytime Cena or a legend or somebody will come back, do as much as you can with them in the building, and also like have Cena cut a video promo via satellite on AJ. All we got was a tweet. They were never face to face going into this.
Well, you're just jacking my stuff from the last show. I mean, that's what I was saying.
No. I know. That's what I'm saying. You did say it. That's what I'm saying. You did say that. And
yeah.
You and I have both always said that on this podcast.
It doesn't make sense.
Logan Paul was like constantly doing that.
Dude, let me ask you this. Why did Roman Reigns, okay, and I'm skipping around a little bit. Why did he fly all the way to Perth? Which is it's like a half a day flight, right? Maybe longer. Yeah. I don't know. He flew all the way to Perth, had a match. At the end of the match, he says, I don't want to hear from you guys until Christmas. Okay. And I'm okay with him taking time off and all that. That's what he does. But if you're already in Perth and you're in Australia, man, like this is a really nice country to be in. It's not like you're in Saudi Arabia or some other like shithole, wherever that might be. And I'm not going to single out any other countries. Shithole, because most countries are beautiful. So really, I'm just saying somewhere like Saudi Arabia where people don't have freedoms, right? You're in Australia, beautiful beaches, so much nice stuff over there. You can't stay Sunday and hang out and then do Raw on Monday and do a segment with your guys backstage and say at that point, I don't want to hear from you guys. I'll see you at Christmas. I'm leaving, and then leave early, jump on your jet, like kind of do that, or tape a segment after Crown Jewel where the Usos find you backstage and you said, guys, I'm serious. I don't want to hear from you until after Christmas. No Thanksgiving, no whatever. And like, just kind of continue building upon that and then air that on Raw. Why aren't you doing that? Why are you not maximizing your appearances? Not just with John Cena, but especially with John Cena, but even beyond him. Why aren't you maximizing them with the likes of Roman Reigns? Some
of the best stuff with The Rock last year was the videos he cut himself working out for a show. Like, it's good for everybody. I don't know. Just it's an easy thing. I don't know if there's contractual whatever's about that, but like
it can't be that.
I don't know. It's like little things you could do to really just add a lot to the show and make it feel like we're not missing John Cena.
I could see it being contractual about like coming to another date that they don't schedule. Maybe Roman has a date list as well, but Cena, he's already there. And in the case of what I'm making with Reigns and Crown Jewel, he's already there. So just do it then. Like even with Cena, by the way, okay, he had to fly out because he's taping a movie. Fine. I understand Cena not being on Raw, but why not tape something after that would build toward it? His next challenger confronting him backstage. Yeah, real good job in that match, Cena. You beat a washed AJ Styles who's 48. Now try to do that against me. And that is the beginning to the build for the next match. Instead, they're operating like Cena's in a silo where the only time he can actually do something on television is when he's live in front of the crowd. Chris, what were your thoughts on Cody Rhodes against Seth Rollins in the Crown Jewel Championship match?
Really good match. Probably longer than it needed to be. And I totally agreed with your point about a crossroads off the top rope not being a finisher is insane.
Right.
Like Cody has totally just like nerfed his own finisher. We said it from the beginning almost when it was like, Why does he have to triple crossroads to beat anybody? You know, like a single crossroads doesn't mean anything anymore. And now we've done that. So it's like, yeah, he probably needs to add another finisher or something because he turned it into the AA like in a year, not even in like 6 months of it being there. So that was weird. But overall, good match, correct result, had to happen. I liked the set. This was maybe some of the best stuff Seth leading into this match and this match that he's done in quite a while, because like you can feel it in the character. It's one of those situations where it's like, yeah, he really is 0-3 against Cody and 0-1,000,000 if you count the house shows. And like that's a natural story you have there. And you can tell like, and it really is true to Seth that he is upset that another guy left the company, came back, and gets to be the headliner and not him. And I like that he didn't have Vision help. I like that he didn't cheat and then kind of did at the end with the watch. Really good stuff overall. Correct winner. Needed to happen.
Outside of like just taking advantage of a referee being blind to something like feet on the ropes or pulling tights, it's probably the lightest cheat that you could do. Like just a quick weapon shot, you know, one that you weren't going to use before, but ultimately you're like, oh, well, it's in front of me. What am I going to do? Not use it, right?
Yeah.
Like it was almost
you could feel the conflict within him.
Right.
You know,
it was almost like it was almost like fate forced him to use it, right? Like you can't put a weapon in front of a heel and then expect him not to use it in that situation. So no, I love the way that match went down. And I was hoping that you were equally as happy as I was that, you know, they made the right decision in the moment. Like you have to have Rollins win. Otherwise the character is dead. And they realized that and they booked it properly, I think is the most important thing.
Yeah. My only criticism was they made it so obvious going in, but that's okay.
You know what? I don't know if they made it that obvious, or at least not as obvious
to smart fans like us.
Yeah, I think there have been other cases where they've beat us over the head with something. I didn't feel like that was happening this time, even though they did 2 of those segments with Rollins. What if I don't win? What does it mean?
Exactly. That was it. When it was like, if you don't win, we're all leaving you. That was like, well, okay, well.
Like I would have preferred that to happen 3 weeks ago, and then you forget it. You get into this.
Yeah.
You know, so you've done it, but it's not top of mind going into the match, basically.
Yeah.
That would have been ideal. The other 3 matches on this show, so you had the women's crown jewel match, Stephanie Vaquer beating Tiffany Stratton, Bronson Reed beating Roman Reigns, and then Io Sky and Rhea Ripley beating the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane. Did you have any thoughts about any of those matches to kind of wrap this part up?
Hey, got to give him credit. Bronson beat Roman Reigns.
He did.
Like, they did it. That's what we thought should happen the first time. We complained they didn't. We had criticisms about things they didn't do, and they gave Bronson Reed the win, man. That is huge. And like you said, he beat Roman and Okada. That's like, that guy is suddenly 1,000,000 times more legitimized, like, as much as anybody in the company right now. And that is awesome. And for that to happen in his home country, where his people were exiled to, but they didn't say that. Awesome. Love that they did that.
It also
countered. It had to happen. It had to happen.
It also countered the standard heel wins first, babyface gets the win back, feud is over. It was literally the opposite. It was
that's what we thought. We wanted Bronson to get the win the first time because then Roman would get the win back, whatever. So,
and that's why it was confusing. They didn't do a tag team match because like clearly Bronson's not going to beat him clean or not going to beat him one-on-one. And then
So credit to where it's due. They did it. They gave something very meaningful to someone who is boosted by it. Sometimes we criticize them for not doing that enough. They did it here. Well done.
They absolutely did. Anything on the other 2 matches, women's crown jewel or the women's tag?
Tag match was awesome. As expected. The women's crown jewel just would have liked a little bit more time, as everybody said.
Yeah, no, that was pretty much the standard consensus coming out of that. All right, so that's your takes on Crown Jewel, which of course we needed, and now we're all caught up. That vintage. Oh, well, I guess what was your great? See, that's the tough part with you not watching live.
Yeah,
is asking for your final grade on the show. Like, what do you think it would have been, or what was it for what you saw?
Had I watched that live, I probably would have given it an A, like other people. That felt like show of the year potential. Like it's in that conversation.
Like you felt the 95s and 94s were accurate.
Yes, I can totally see how that happened. I didn't even watch the show in order. That's on me. I by the books on the page, the box score, like I can totally see it. They had meaningful things happen, good matches, good energy, would have maybe liked one more match on the card.
Sure.
But they got it.
Yeah, I think if they had taken, I said this on the show, the last man standing, that understand. Now, look, they need to sell tickets to Raw and SmackDown when they're overseas, especially. Right. They have to give real main events for those shows. But had they taken that last man standing and put it on this show, it's a 6-match card, and that was like the middle match, you're talking about the premium live event of the year for WWE, most likely.
Yeah.
That was all.
It's right up there with Evolution and whatever night of the WrestleManias was good. I don't remember.
I think it was like Royal Rumble or Elimination Chamber. I remember being really good. I don't know that. I'm pretty confident neither night of SummerSlam will be nominated for PLE of the year.
Which I also didn't get to watch live because that was in Europe.
Yeah, right. But WrestleMania, maybe one of the nights just de facto will get up there.
I need to go back and look. I do not remember.
Yeah, I mean, those two. I think what we said coming out of WrestleMania was, if we combined those cards and picked the best 8 to 9 matches, then you have an all-time WrestleMania. Because you had the 2 triple threats and there were some other really good matches. But as 2 separate shows, neither of them was individually amazing.
Agree.
That sounds like what we said at the time. But yeah, we'll see. Those 2025 Getting Over awards, a.k.a.
the Meaties,
are coming up. I mean, little over 2 months away. That means the Silver King has a lot of work to do. Especially because, I don't know, by the way, I still didn't tell you this. I said it on the show, so our listeners may have heard it before you. Did you hear what I said about the John Cena episode of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast?
You did. That's the first I'd heard of it.
I know, my bad.
It'll be interesting, though, because I missed peak John Cena time. I was out of wrestling at that time.
Me too.
So, I don't know. But yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, I missed the first X number of years of John Cena, and I started watching them back on the WWE Network, like literally from when he started up until whatever. And then I stopped because the WWE Network went away, and I never picked it up on Peacock because going back and forth between the shows was so difficult. So there's still a couple years I'm missing in WWE. But I caught up on a real good amount of stuff at the beginning of the Ruthless Aggression era. And I definitely picked stuff up around when Cena and Punk were feuding. So it's some of those in-between years that I'm a little bit shaky on. But yeah, we will have a special John Cena retirement episode of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast in under 2 months. And then in over 2 months' time, we will indeed have your 2025 Getting Over Awards, a.k.a.
Los Meaties,
as well as your 2025 year in review in all of professional wrestling, which is an absolute bear and a lot to undertake. And I'm now realizing I should probably get started on that because I got like 10 weeks left. And so a little inside baseball thing for everyone. So beginning of every year, I create a Google Doc. And as things happen in wrestling, I start writing down like, oh, this person turned heel, this title changed. 2 years in a row, I've started this document on January 1st. Both times, I did not get past January 18th. It's too much. Like I'm sending the tweets and we're doing the shows and all that. It's like, how do I keep up? So that requires basically a week of research and going back through the year and trying to remember every single thing that happened in professional wrestling and, naturally missing stuff along the way, but hey, maybe in 2026, we'll see. Anyway, Chris, so that was Crown Jewel. Raw on Monday night, I thought was phenomenal. In fact, I said that Raw and SmackDown combined was probably the best week of WWE TV across the 4.5 hours they've given us in quite some time, mostly considering SmackDown has largely been garbage. Let's talk about the big storyline, the big shocker, right? At the end of Raw, with Seth Rollins and the Vision standing tall after CM Punk had won a number 1 contendership for the World Heavyweight Championship. Out of nowhere, Braun Breaker spears the soul out of Seth Rollins' body, convinces Bronson Reed and eventually Paul Heyman to turn on him as well. The Vision, Chris, now has no visionary. What do you think about that?
It made zero sense whatsoever for the reasons you laid out on the show. For him to get the win without the help and then have them turn on anyway made no sense. Now, we talk now about the reports, rumors that Seth is legitimately injured?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's multiple, I would call them unconfirmed reports out there, and certainly I have used our sleuthing abilities and tried to gain specific information. I've heard he's injured. And I believe he's injured, and I think everyone reporting he's injured is completely accurate. There have been differing kind of reports on the extent to which he's injured. Pretty much universally, others are reporting he needs surgery. Some are saying, well, that means he's going to be out for a year plus, 9 months plus. I haven't seen anyone report it short term. Generally, you don't want to suggest how long someone's going to be out of action unless you specifically know the injury, it's been diagnosed, it's been released, or they undergo the surgery and the doctor is able to see what damage was done and they can actually evaluate based on what repairs they need to make, how long that person is going to be out. So for me, the time out of ring at this point is speculation.
Yes.
But when you combine the fact that he is injured and almost certainly needs surgery based on reporting, with the fact that this was clearly something from a creative standpoint that was, I don't want to say rushed, it was brought up earlier than it was planned, and it was executed in the way it was executed. To me, that speaks to them needing a way to write this guy off television and take the championship off of him. Because otherwise, you don't do it in this manner. And that is why it surprised me so much, Chris, that he didn't take a further beating. Like, yeah, I know if he's hurt, then one spear and one tsunami is hurting him. It's actively hurting his body, most likely. But if you're really selling it, especially if you're allowing him to do those two moves, can Bronson Reed really not do 3 more tsunamis? Like, can we really not make it so that this guy is flattened and can't work and can't wrestle and needs time off? Because you've already had Bronson Reed tsunami, Seth Rollins. He did it 6 times and he missed a period of time. Here, it's really tough to believe that one spear and one tsunami is going to take this guy out of action when we've seen LA Knight and CM Punk and Jey Uso take one spear and one tsunami and come back the next week and win a match.
I say all of this. I really wanted to get to this point because this is exactly why you don't do that fake injury ankle, especially at the time of WWE Unreal, because now we're not going to believe anything that they say to us. And because we know, because you open up the Unreal era and do that documentary and explain how things work, now we as viewers only think about the turn in the context of him getting hurt in real life. And that is because when you give kind of a middle finger to kayfabe, as they have, if you don't care about it as much, we then won't care about it as much. The only way you can kind of get out of this is not get out of it, but you need Braun Breaker to say, I knew Seth was hurt and I saw a chance to take him out.
Agreed.
You have to lean into that, because otherwise we're thinking, oh, why do you turn on them? Oh, Seth's hurt. So it doesn't matter what the explanation is unless the explanation is tied to a real life injury. And now it's like, are we going to believe it or not? Because we just did the fake injury. It's like the boy who cried wolf type of situation where it's like, well, now I don't know if I'm ever going to believe an injury around Seth Rollins and whatever happens to this and that. And that interferes with the story they're trying to tell us, even if they had to pivot on the story. And I think that is the way you have to go with it. You knew Seth was hurt. You further hurt him. We won't hear from him for a while or something. It's just for Seth to be actually hurt, 2 months after they did a fake injury angle is really unfortunate timing, obviously. But that's also the risk I always knew they would have by running that concurrent with a Netflix documentary about what's real and what's not.
So I agree with one thing you said and disagree with another. So what I agree with is when Braun Breaker shows up on Raw on Monday, he needs to say exactly what you said. That we as the Vision were aware that Seth Rollins, injured his shoulder or arm, whatever they're going to call it, in this match. And we were, there was a good chance that he was going to lose the title to CM Punk anyway. So I cut the poison out of our system. I ensured the Vision is about the vision and not the visionary. And I did what I had to do to make sure that we could go on. And I plan to be the world heavyweight champion going forward. If they do something like that, it will atone for the lack of severity and lack of pain they inflicted on him in kayfabe Monday night in the main event. If they don't,
like they knew he was good. They knew he was going to be out.
Right. Like, well, they knew he was going to miss some time or he was going to be hobbled for his match with CM Punk. And Rollins has already lost to CM Punk when healthy. So now that he was going to fight him injured, they had to ensure that the title stayed with the Vision. And the only way they could do that was by taking out Rollins and Breakker trying to assume the World Heavyweight Championship, to which Adam Pearce then comes out and says, obviously you can't just get the title. This isn't, what was it? Triple H was given the World Heavyweight Championship by Eric Bischoff. Is that correct? Like
that is how they debuted it. Yes.
They just gave it to him. They're like, you should be a champion. Wasn't he like draft? This could be wrong. Okay. This is how burnt my brain is. Wasn't he like drafted to SmackDown and then like Bischoff brought him over to Raw and it's like, not only am I bringing you over to Raw, I'm giving you a championship that didn't exist.
I don't know the exact order. Again, I was not in wrestling at that time, but I have gone back and watched the clip. And yes, Bischoff reveals the World Heavyweight Championship, the old WCW belt, and gives it to Triple H. But I believe in that same segment, I think it's Ric Flair comes out and basically it's like Triple H has to beat him to win the title or something like that.
Or maybe he said, like, to be the man, you got to beat the man, and blah blah blah, and then they did the match.
Yeah, it's something like that. He did ultimately. Then it's given to him, but then he wins a match to basically get it.
He earned it on the back end, basically. Yeah. So whatever. I mean, they can't do that with Breakker, obviously, because it's 2025, and creative should be way better than that. But I could see Breakker saying, like, this is why I did it, because I'm now the champion. He holds up the title. He's taken it. It belongs to the Vision. Whatever. And then Pierce comes out and says, no, you don't. But I'll tell you what you can do. You can challenge CM Punk for the vacant title at Saturday night's main event. And then that's how you get into that match. So it has to be something like that to what you said, explaining it. Now, that said, Chris, besides, so that was the thing I agreed with. Okay. Mm-hmm. What I disagree with is your contention that now, either in retrospect or going forward, faking an injury and putting one over on your audience. First of all, I liked it from the beginning. Let me be clear. People were up in arms. How dare WWE do that? Blah, blah, blah. I never had an issue with it. I loved it.
I didn't in theory. I did in the context. I did in the context of ruining an LA Knight match with that on NBC and doing it when he has Money in the Bank. So he didn't, as LA Knight said, you didn't even have to do it. But overall, yes.
Right. I didn't like the booking for a show like that only has 4 matches, and they were just getting into it too. And yeah, I completely agree. And also, he already had the briefcase, so he didn't need to do it, but it did work. Don't forget, that created a fantastic individual moment when he cashed in. It was awesome. And it gave him something like, to heal up about. It was pretty solid in that way. So what I disagree with, though, in this context is that now you can't do that again, or even to another degree. And I tried to find the sound drop to this, but it's the movie Tag, the scene after the guy's wife lies about her medical condition. I'm not going to use the word on the show. And they show up at the wedding. And he's like, I'm not saying I wanted that to happen to you, but that's what you get. That's what you get. So I don't believe like Seth Rollins or WWE karmatically deserve this in some way, right? Like, because they tried to pull the wool over our eyes with an injury earlier in the year. I simply believe that shit happens. And this is some shit that happened. Really, it's at the fault of them deciding to do that specific coast-to-coast headbutt move, which was dangerous. And I loved it in the match. I thought it was super inventive. I saw people up in arms about it. Oh my God, flying headbutts are so bad. Yeah, they are. But like, they tried to do it in a safe way. And it did protect his head. It just didn't protect his shoulder or arm. And that's exactly why we are where we are. It's because they did that move, not because of what they did earlier in the year. So I have no issue with them doing that before. I think it sucks now. I didn't not believe this because of that. I do think it's ironic that they did this angle immediately after Punk became number 1 contender. And the last time they ran it was him cashing in on Punk after he won the title. So like, that is a parallel that I think is difficult to escape here. But I'm not going to be up in arms about that because of this. Nor am I going to suggest they shouldn't do that again. I agree that back, a couple months ago, it was a little bit messy the way they did it. It could have been cleaner and a little bit more direct. But look, we talk about it on the show all the time. In 2025, you can't kayfabe people anymore. So they did in that case. And some people didn't believe it. We talked on this show about
I didn't believe it.
How I didn't believe it, but a lot of people did.
I did believe it. I got work.
Yeah, you did. I
did appreciate that.
But a lot of people were like you. They didn't believe it, and it worked for that reason. So I'm not going to go back and change my thoughts on that or think differently or suggest people think differently about that. I think it sucks. I think WWE during Raw made the move that they felt was best. Now, this upcoming Raw and moving forward, they have to pay that off with good creative, good booking, and good storytelling, because it's a little bit messy what they did on Raw because it wasn't planned and it didn't really fit where you do that to someone immediately after a number one contender is named.
Agree. To that point, like, are you surprised that Punk won?
Extremely surprised. Yeah. I thought initially, well, let me put it this way. When the match was initially announced and it appeared as if the winner of that match would challenge for the title at Saturday night's main event, to me, it was a perfect parallel situation for Knight to win a number one contendership because, look, folks, I know some of you want him to be World Heavyweight Champion, and maybe he will one time in the next year or two. Clearly, they're not investing in him as a long-term main event title holder. And that's okay, because not everyone can be that, okay? Like Damian Priest is not a long-term main event title holder. He's an upper mid-carder who got a shot. And I think LA Knight will be an upper mid-carder who one day gets a shot. But this was the perfect opportunity to give him a number one contendership, build to that match at Saturday night's main event. You have the parallel of, you kind of screwed me over, Rollins, by, taking the injury out. Even though I beat you clean, now I actually get to fight you on the show for a title. There's no way out for you. I don't think they changed it to CM Punk. I believe Punk was always the booking, but that particularly surprises me because of what I said on Tuesday's show. This would have been the third Rollins Punk match, not counting the Money in the Bank cash-in, and they would have occurred on Raw, and Saturday night's main event. I don't know why you would book that. Why are you not saving that for a major show? I just don't get it.
Agree. And so now, like, I have no idea what they're going to do. Are they going to strip Seth? Are they going to wait? I can't imagine it's Braun versus Punk for the title. I guess maybe, but like Braun's not ready for that either. So do you go back to, hey, CM Punk's your veteran star on the roster, give him his run now because Seth's going to be out and Seth comes back at some point and we'll see. But it feels like maybe they're thinking now is going to ultimately be the best and maybe only time for CM Punk's last real title run. Well, that would make sense.
That's problematic because I believe they hadn't strapped him up in that way because they wanted the moment he wins the title and the big run he has to be super important and be his last. So the question is,
possibly, yeah.
Do you start that over and extend it to when it was going to end naturally? Or maybe that wasn't going to happen for another 9 months. So do you just flip your creative and you push whatever that was now? And then it's so tough, right? Because we're about 6 months, I want to say, from WrestleMania. If Rollins has surgery that is going to keep him out of that show, then that ruins a potential Rollins Punk or Rollins Reigns main event match. And I have to believe it would have been Rollins and Reigns at this point.
Here's what I would do.
So what do you do? Like you can't main event Braun Breaker on that show.
No, this is not what's going to happen, but here's what I would do. You do another number one contender for the other slot.
I love that.
Jay, LA Knight, Braun, whoever. LA Knight wins. We get the LA Knight CM Punk match because they've been going at each other for a while. LA Knight wins. You give him his world title run. He carries it for a couple of months.
Love it.
Maybe he loses it at Royal Rumble or the December, the Cena show or something. I don't know. Give him just like a little bit of time because right now you're in the downtime. It's the heat of football season.
Yep.
You have one major pay-per-view for the rest of the year. Like if you're going to do it, this is the least risky time to put it on LA Knight. We had the Jey Uso run. We don't need to go back to Damian Priest. We just had a long Gunther run. Like LA Knight would be a fresh face to get it. He's getting crazy big pops right now. It would fit in the story and go with it for a couple of months and see how it is. And then when you get around to Rumble time, whatever your creative is, go in that direction. Like this would be the time to do it, I think.
No, that's exactly the correct booking because you don't want to give it to Jay based on the storyline he's in. if you weren't planning for Punk to hold it, you don't want Punk to hold it because you want to maintain whatever storyline you were going to tell with him and the title. Braun Breaker, they could do it. And I wouldn't be that would be almost my plan B, Chris, would be have Braun Breaker win it because specifically you don't want to put it on Punk, and it does rocket ship that guy. I mean, young dudes have won before, and the fact is WWE's main event scene right now is old as shit. So if you want to give Braun a 2-month reign with the title, he gets that other spot, beats Punk, has help from Bronson Reed. Maybe he expands the vision and someone else joins them. That would be fine with me. But the general point that you're making is it should be a short-term title reign to get WWE to the next, give it time almost, like 2 months of time, so it can figure out what its next chapter is going to be. You don't want to start a big storyline like Punk being a champion for an extended period of time. You don't want to start that on a whim. When you get in a situation like this, it's very similar to what happened with TNA, where Ash by Elegance had to drop the Knockouts title. This has just happened because of some type of personal health issue. We don't know. And they weren't yet ready to strap up the next major knockout or whoever they have ready for that spot. So they gave it to Connie Jordan. And I'm sure she's only going to have a run for a couple months. And she's probably going to drop it to whoever that person is. They just picked someone where it made sense in the moment. I love the booking of doing another number one contendership next week. Have it be, if you want, Braun Breaker, LA Knight, Jey Uso, and even Bronson Reed if you want. And you know, make it like a 2-on-2 type of situation.
Yeah, he beat Roman. He's got a case.
He does. He has a better case. He has a much better case than Braun Breaker does. Honestly.
Yes.
Honestly, dude, they're not going to strap up Bronson Reed with the World Heavyweight title, but he just beat Roman Reigns. It'd be more legitimate now than it ever would be in his entire career if you were going to do it right now. But the point is, you put him in that match, you have Knight win, he gets the other number one contendership, you do the match with Punk. The Vision can even cost Punk in that match if you want, because they hate him for some reason more than they hate Knight. Knight wins, he's the champion for a couple months, just like you said. That's the move. It is.
I'm going to be so disappointed now when this doesn't happen.
You can't, think like that. Raw and SmackDown otherwise, because we spent a lot of time talking about a lot of topics we didn't plan. Raw, SmackDown otherwise, was there anything that really stuck out to you? The women's storylines on Raw, obviously the Joshi storyline extended, the last man standing match on SmackDown, the return of Tama Tonga with the face paint and the MFT and the way that was positioned with the Wyatt Six.
So that was my other thought.
Yeah.
Like, it is... We got to be going toward War Games or Survivor Series with those two teams at this point. Like, it's the only thing I could think of. Like, it was very obvious they were trying to go with Wyatt Family Shield face to face, like we got at Elimination Chamber that one year. And I think everybody felt those same vibes. That's why they were chanting, "Holy shit!" You know, even though these are two teams we don't really care about, there's not like a ton going on with either of them. But you just put two factions together and you're into it. And this. I love that TNA NXT did actual Survivor Series matches. And it was a reminder of like how actually you can tell a lot of stories with those matches compared to a War Games.
Yeah.
And even though Survivor Series, the concept was created in response to War Games back in the day, I would love for them to go back to that. So I'm interested. Like, I'm interested in these two teams and where they go. It's insane the Wyatts still have the tag titles and retain them again. They've just completely destroyed the tag team division, and I can't believe we're still doing this. But the four ways was interesting. Nikki Cross getting in Solo's face was interesting.
Like how shocking, Chris, was like, you're like, oh, this match isn't really that good, and like, oh, Tama Tonga's back, that's cool, but like MFT in totality, but they got together and those lights were flashing and that face paint was on, and you're like, this is pretty different, cool, man. Like, I kind of want to see this match.
Yeah. So like, that's cool. I'm into that. And Kairi Sane being the main character in the storyline with Rhea and Io and all them has been interesting. They've done a really good job of telling all that.
What'd you think of fresh babyface Shinsuke Nakamura?
It was fine. I've been out on Shinsuke for a long time. I know every time he's had kind of a gimmick change, you've wanted them to strap him up and all these things. Like, it's fine. Like, it's good because people just want to sing his song and cheer for him. Right. And they finally just went back and said, all right, let's just do that. And it works.
Last man standing, Zelina Vega heelish turn with her husband.
This was better than the Australian rules street fight from Crown Jewel. And normally we don't like last man standing matches, but they
Yeah.
did a good job with this. Look, it's something for both of them. I've been totally not interested in Black Priest at all. So Zelina Vega coming to her husband's aid. All right, like it's something. I'll be interested in how that goes. I don't think they said it on the show. Is it kayfabe canon that she is his wife?
I don't believe so. I'm guessing that's going to get revealed on SmackDown, but no. I mean, as far as I know.
That's why I was surprised commentary didn't say it in that moment. So I'm curious how they handle that. But all right, it's something else for Aleister Black. Maybe that becomes interesting.
Yeah, I always think it's funny, like all the couples that exist in wrestling, if there was ever one I would not put together just off of pure judging books by their covers, it's I almost called him Tom, sorry. Aleister Black and Zelina Vega. Like it's just tall dude from the Netherlands, small little Puerto Rican girl from the Bronx. Like you just don't. I don't know. It's one of those weird things.
He's all spooky evil. She's video
game. Like cute, whatever. So that was honestly what popped me as much as like the turn in the moment. It was her in all black with the white streak in her hair. Like
she looked like Cruella DeVille.
She kind of did. Like she was like you could tell she was intrinsically motivated. And like there was an aura about her there that just didn't exist other times you saw her on screen. I loved it.
Unless I'm misremembering, like they didn't finish that off with both of them like smiling and laughing and with like a sinister grin. I think they should have.
Yeah, no, I think it was like, so he tells her, get off of this. Like, why are you here basically? And obviously the gimmick was she handed him the fireball patch. They do that. Yeah. They win the match. They may have been arm in arm on the floor walking away, but the camera was primarily focused on Priest. I agree. Yeah. Arm in arm, not even laughing, just like smiling big at each other or hugging or whatever the case would have really sold it. But we'll get the storytelling on Friday.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm interested.
Yeah. And that's, you know what? I've been interested in Aleister Black since he returned. I like him. I thought it's gone in waves. It started really hot, went down significantly. Now, this is the peak of his return so far. I'm more interested in him than I have been since he returned to WWE. I'm more interested in Zelina Vega than I have been in a couple years, frankly, in terms of individual main roster talent, because she wasn't booked well. There was a period of time where it was like, oh, they're doing something with Zelina. She's getting reactions. Backlash Puerto Rico. When they were doing that, it was great. She was getting crazy pops before she got to Puerto Rico. Then she went there, got an insane pop, that amazing moment. She had a couple good episodes of whatever show she was on at the time afterward, I think Raw. And then just from there until now, she's been in the basement, basically. So more interested in Zelina than before, more interested in Black than before, and putting them together. I mean, they're a couple, so it doesn't require that much brain power. But in my opinion, it's a stroke of genius creatively because it fills the gaps. I said this on Tuesday's show. It fills each of their gaps and repairs their flaws. Black can storytell and he can go out there and be mystic, but he never really hammers you home with like, you have to watch this match. Zelina talks shit, and she's the one who makes matches interesting just by getting on the mic. So he can do all his shit, and then she can come on at the end and say XYZ, boom, you care about the match. So I'm really interested in this.
Yeah, I'm interested as well.
All right, Chris. Well, look, thanks for joining the show and breaking down as much as you could about WWE over the last, let's call it 10 days or so. You will be back on Tuesday with our next entire complete WWE episode where we're going to talk about everything that happened across SmackDown and Raw. But here on this episode of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, we still have an absolute ton to talk about. We're covering TNA Bound for Glory, WWE's NXT, and 3 episodes, technically, of AEW television, all leading into AEW WrestleDream this weekend vintage. Thanks for joining. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. One last reminder here, there are timestamps in the episode description, so if you want to skip over the TNA Wrestling Bound for Glory breakdown, again, we're only talking 4 matches. Pretty much all of them have WWE or NXT implications. NXT, AEW, if you're listening real close to the weekend and you want to get right to the AEW WrestleDream Ultimate Preview, you can do that by visiting the episode description, checking the timestamp. As always, we hope you listen to the entire show. Now, look, while we're not going to cover the entirety of Bound for Glory, let's take a look at the featured matches, particularly those, like I said, that were relevant and partially built through WWE TV. Before we talk about the main event, you need to know there were double winners in something called the Call Your Shot Gauntlet. Nick Nemeth, who is Dolph Ziggler, and Frankie Kazarian won, but I couldn't tell if they got anything for it besides a trophy. Apparently, it's like WWE Money in the Bank. It made no sense to have double winners, considering Santino Marella was literally ringside and could have just continued the match until there was a true winner, especially since he made that exact decision later in the show for a different match. The double count was also really clunky, and not using this match to put someone fresh over, instead doing a tie between two guys who are combined 93 years of age, was just a huge shrug. No one is watching the product for that. This was really a waste of time when you consider there could have been surprise entrants either from NXT or elsewhere that could have been intriguing options in this match. It was so lazy, just something you'd book like as a TV main event, not on a pay-per-view. Anyway, you needed to know this before we get to the main event. The TNA Championship was on the line. Trick Williams defending against Mike Santana. Conan was in attendance for Santana, who wore a red stripe of paint across his eyes. Williams got great heat doing his own announce, which may be something he needs to continue. Santana attacked him for all his boasting before the bell, but after they brawled into the crowd, Trick landed a title shot, forcing the bell to ring. He immediately hit Trick kick for a false finish, followed by a Michinoku driver and a flapjack. Santana took a great seesaw into the ring post, busting him open from the forehead. He came back, leaping off a steel step for a Superman punch before taking a backdrop into another. Trick landed a flying blockbuster as a counter off the second rope, and he did a great job generating crowd heat throughout the match. Santana caught him by surprise, rolling backward with a cutter before hitting LIC and a running cannonball. Santana paused for way too long, attempting a high-risk move that allowed Williams to toss him off into the ring apron with another post shot following. Then he beat Mike in front of his daughter to the point she slapped him across the face. It's a little girl, by the way. Santana catching him with a tope cannonball, Inseguri, Liger Bomb, Death Valley Driver, and a 450. All of that followed for a pair of near falls. Trick countered Spin the Block with a pair of bookends, rarely climbing the ropes for an avalanche bookend false finish at 2.8. Williams grabbed the TNA title, but Santana avoided an extremely strange belt shot. Trick kick, Spin the Block landed one after another, with Williams the first to kick out of his finisher. Santana took out this random lawyer character with Spin the Block, only to eat a trick shot for a real false finish. Raising himself while looking at his daughter, Santana avoided trick shot before they countered Spin the Block into bookend, into eventually Spin the Block for the 1-2-3, with Santana winning the TNA title. Great job by production, getting the daughter busting into tears immediately after the bell rang. High marks for them on that. Santana and Trick, they shared some clearly meaningful words on the canvas after this was over, but as Santana was about to get awarded the TNA title, Nemeth came out with the trophy, seeking to cash it in. The lights then went out. Elijah, I guess, returned, smashed a guitar over his head, and then raised his hat to Santana. Kazarian then entered the ring, wanting to cash in the trophy, but he didn't have it in his possession. So Santana landed Spin the Block on him to stand tall. Then he got awarded the title, which he gave to his daughter while on his knees. It was a beautiful father-daughter moment to end the show. Let's get one thing straight, okay? The whole post-match was ridiculous and unnecessary. Returning Elijah and having Santana overcome another obstacle was nowhere near as important as just letting him maximize the effing moment that he won the championship by immediately celebrating with the title and then his daughter. That's what everyone came to see in the main event. Certainly not Nemeth and Kazarian, regardless of whether the fans like Elijah. I'm not trying to compare Trick and Santana to like Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, but could you imagine after Cody won the title, they had like Damian Priest and Bronson Reed come out instead of allowing Cody to celebrate? It's just dumb booking and shitty creative. Also, Carlos Silva, friend of the show. This guy is the president of TNA in reality, but he's also like half of an on-screen character in that he shows up, wears his hat, and presents titles. But he's also expressed how badly he wanted the TNA titles back on TNA wrestlers in kayfabe. Yet he didn't smile or go the extra mile congratulating Santana or anything. He was just there. If you don't make a difference on screen, you don't need to be on screen. The booking of the match itself was quite well done. Santana given additional adversity at the onset of the match, Williams getting a small level of protection, being the first person to kick out of his opponent's finisher, Santana winning the title squeaky clean, Trick taking a full loss without any scapegoating. I mean, unless he wants to blame the little girl for slapping him, which would, of course, be good heel shit. The match was what it needed to be from a booking standpoint, bell to bell. Action-wise, the crowd was exhausted, but the wrestling was quite good. Trick is literally only a finisher away from being a complete wrestler, ready for the main roster. I have no idea why he continues to do the trick shot and trick kick as a powerful, long dude, but that's the only thing missing from him right now. He's got the in-ring together. He already has personality plus charisma for days. Career-level achievement for Santana here. The dude left AEW, bet on himself, and won a world championship. He got sober at his daughter's request, completely turned his life around. And then he recovered from that awful leg injury 3 years ago during Blood and Guts. Now he's on top of the world. If you're hearing murmurs about WWE, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him over there in a couple of years. But he's the man now in TNA and someone that badly need to top this division, given plenty of other folks there. Names I mentioned are damn old. Just look at the number one contenders. Most importantly, perhaps people can shut up about the NXT TNA relationship. This was the entire purpose of not only putting the title on Trick, but extending his reign so long to build the need and the desire for this particular moment. I'm at 4 stars, A-, but if you told me this was an A match in your mind, 4.25, I'm okay with that. The storytelling was great. The match was awesome. Top to bottom, these guys delivered. They deserve all the credit in the world. X Division Championship, Leon Slater against Javon Evans. The crowd was red hot at the bell. Didn't love the body paint on Slater. It was distracting. Evans got the first bouncy flurry. Slater later landed a springboard back elbow, then worked into a great slingshot cutter. Javon countered another slingshot into a snap tornado DDT before landing OG cutter over the ropes onto the ring apron for a 9.5 count. Baller move. When Slater slid back into the ring, Evans immediately hit a springboard frog splash to his back, then a regular one to his front, legitimately 3/4 of the way across the ring, with Slater popping up his body into the air for like extra impact on the landing. False finish, of course. Astounding sequence there. Slater rocked Evans with an anti-air kick to the neck on Red Dot, but Javon caught him coming back with a Hurricanrana and Red Dot, only for Slater to counter an OG cutter with a neck breaker. Phenomenal. Leon worked a little tweener, challenging Javon to go chop for chop. Evans smartly feigned a chop. Instead, he hit a surprise cutter, landing a springboard OG cutter immediately after for an epic false finish. They purposefully crashed off the top rope, which I'd just not have done personally. And then they fought into the crowd for about 1 minute, leading to the 20-minute time limit expiring. 0 warnings were provided to the crowd or viewer. Since both guys begged for the match to continue, Santino came out. He granted them 5 more minutes. The crowd was hype. At the new bell, Javon caught Leon with a Bazaiku knee for a false finish. Slater came back with Utopia, Blue Thunderbomb, and a Tope con Hero somersault over the ring post. Insane. Evans then box jumped the top rope for an avalanche Spanish fly when the lights suddenly went out and Dark State attacked, creating a no contest with toss power bombs on both guys. Peak TNA bullshit booking. I understand the concept of not wanting to deliver a winner because these guys are equally important to their respective companies. The problem is you had Slater pin Evans on NXT TV for no reason whatsoever on Tuesday. Why not have Javon pin him with his finisher in the tag team match and then have something happen in this match where Evans' foot gets stuck or he gets poked in the eye or whatever, and Slater capitalizes and gets the win, but it's clearly in question. Involving Dark State here undoubtedly got heat on the faction, but at what cost? Before that depressing finish, this was on its way to being an A+ match, possibly even 5 stars. Hell, it was on its way to maybe being a match of the year contender if it got 10 more minutes. Just depending how it finished, you know? It's quite something that TNA teased a finish that would anger fans, only to restart the match with the intensity somehow doubling, only to deliver a finish that angered fans anyway. All for a faction where half the members shouldn't even be on developmental television. At the same time, given their tremendous work and the frenzy into which the crowd was worked, I don't see how I can go lower than an A for this. 4.25 stars, the match of the night. These two have such an immense level of talent and potential. It's actually insane. Javon is a level above Leon in terms of being well-rounded, someone who's already at the level where he can be a legitimate WWE main roster superstar. But Slater has so many of the same traits, certainly the in-ring ability, the genuine babyface aura that draws incredible reactions. In fact, I think he probably has a better heel side than Evans at this juncture, if he ever gets to show it. But this was a show highlight. It was incredible bell to bell, and it was just super unfortunate the way it ended. The TNA and NXT tag team titles were on the line. The Hardys against Team 3D, one final table. Spike Dudley showed up during their entrance in a fun little moment. The Hardys became underdogs immediately, with Matt eating a 3D at the bell, before Jeff ate shit on Whisper in the Wind, taking the Waz Up diamond headbutt and a 3D himself through the first table. Both partners had to take offensive moves through tables in order to lose. That was the gimmick of the match. That's important because Matt ate shit on an elbow drop off the apron, throwing himself through a table moments later, so that didn't count. A ladder and 2 tables got set up on the ramp so Jeff could call back to his Swanton bomb spot, striking Devon. Jeff somehow came up short despite the tables being right underneath him. I think his head may have scraped one of the rungs of the ladder, but he was awake and I guess fine, but it was still too close for comfort. The Hardys teed off with chairs on Bully Ray. He was able to dodge a chair throw to the head, with Jeff hitting Matt instead. Matt pulled away a table to prevent Jeff from being powerbombed through it, hitting 2 twists of fate on Bully Ray before Jeff added a Swanton bomb. Bully then used a table to stand up, knowing his fate was sealed, basically allowing the Hardys to throw down their chairs and do a double Uranagi through the table to win the match. It was a lackluster end to what I thought was a great nostalgia match, something meant to be emotional and meaningful, but it just fell short at the end, especially since there was a table in the corner. Bubba could have made like a last gasp to like heal it up, try to fake that he was giving up and throw one of them through the table, fake the resignation. The pop would have then been stronger when he actually got put through the table. Alas, the Hardys were the right winners, especially since they're also NXT champions, and those titles certainly could not have gone to Team 3D. I'm giving it 3.25 stars and a B, mostly for Jeff's Swanton spot, the nostalgia aspect of it. With 200 years of wrestling in that ring, they acquitted themselves relatively well and actually worked a nostalgically, cosmetically strong, albeit slow match. The Hardys helped the Dudleys to their feet after the bell for a 4-man hug. The fans chanted, "Thank you, Dudleys." When they went to leave, the Dudleys stopped them so they could be present in the ring when they removed their boots and handed them to the Hardys, officially retiring, it seems, from in-ring competition, both of them around 54 years old. That was a sweet moment. You could tell there was real emotion for all 4 guys, hugging, even crying a bit. Extremely well done at the end after the bell. A nice sight to see the Dudleys riding off into the sunset together, arms around one another. Incredible career for these guys. They deserved a send-off like this, and I'm glad they got it, even if the match was, mostly whatever. Knockouts Championship, Kalani Jordan defending against Indy Hartwell. Lonnie hit a cool springboard spinning leg drop, and Indy was draped over the middle rope when that was landed. Hartwell then bent Jordan backwards over her knees while in a surfboard position. Really nice submission move. Jordan came back with a cartwheel, back elbow, a full split cutter, single leg crab. Indy struggled on a powerbomb with Lonnie, hitting Rob Van Dam's step over roundhouse kick and his 5-star frog splash. Hartwell landed a really weak flying elbow drop as Jordan was crouched over following her Hertz Donut finisher for a rope break. Indy then missed a second elbow drop and took one of a kind as Lonnie retained the title. They were both baby faces all match, and they shook hands after the bell. Did not necessarily have an expectation for the result, just given the original plan was presumably for Indy to beat Ash by elegance for the title. With plans changing and Jordan getting inserted as a random champion, it was perhaps too early to take the strap off of her, especially since JC Jane previously had a short title reign. The question's going to be what TNA does from here, just because its division has been so thinned out. My guess is they build up a younger woman into a top contender, use Lonnie to put her over, maybe Danny Luna. The match was okay, all things considered. Indy had a couple flashes, but largely wrestled as if she was still green, clunky, lacking confidence. She's easy to cheer for. She's just not good enough bell to bell. She never made that necessary leap above average, despite having plenty of experience. The truth is, Lonnie's the better, more interesting wrestler, and therefore, she's the better champion for TNA right now. 2.75 stars, C+. Elsewhere on the show, Tessa Blanchard cheated with a roll of quarters to beat an announcer, which made absolutely no sense. It was a terrible match. There was also something called a hardcore war, in which a dude sized like Big Cass did a choke bomb of Alicia Edwards into a pile of thumbtacks.
No, don't like that.
Then Mustafa Ali sprinkled more tacks on her torso, only to completely miss a 450, splashing the tacks flat in a gnarly ass spot.
Oh! Yes! I love that!
This was like the fourth match of the show, and it was the first one that was worthy of a pay-per-view. That's pretty much all I got for you from the remaining card, but I loved that Ali spot. And in general, I just love the work that Ali is doing in TNA. So that's TNA Bound for Glory. I don't have an overall show grade. If I was going to give you one, it'd be in the B range, something like that. The first half was absolutely awful. And even some of the late stuff I talked about that was good was kind of like ruined by surrounding creative. The two men's singles matches specifically. It's like, why could you just not deliver better for all four of those guys? It's really, really frustrating. So, all right, that takes us out of TNA Bound for Glory. It brings us into NXT. Now, because NXT was taped last week, the entire 80-minute episode was uploaded to Netflix and not aired live. Thus, you were able to watch and finish the show well before it went off the air in the United States. That's exactly what I did, in large part to avoid those particular ads that we discussed a couple weeks ago. I'm no longer watching on the CW for that reason. Ricky Saints opened the show confident about Trick folding under pressure, given he left him high and dry in the Survivor Series match. Saints said Trick talks a lot of shit about being the king of NXT, but his actions don't back that up. He had no desire to wait for a number one contender to establish himself. Instead, he called out Trick for a match at Halloween Havoc. Williams popped up on the Titantron saying Saints was just following in his footsteps, except the difference is Ricky had to grind his whole life for this opportunity, whereas Trick, he got a VIP entrance to the top and he's looked better than him the entire way doing it. Williams then agreed to the match, but said they would do it on his time. I assumed the match would happen at Halloween Havoc anyway, but maybe there was a stipulation or something that needed to get added. Both cut damn good promos. This was a difficult segment to execute because Trick lost the TNA title at Bound for Glory, and therefore they couldn't really work that into the mix. It was also tough to tell if the same version of his promo that aired live to the crowd is the one we saw on screen. Saints did a great job on the stick once again. While his title reign feels quite different than that of Obafemi, I'd say it's off to a hot start, all things considered. Saints later got attacked backstage by Williams in the middle of another segment. He was incensed after that, looking for Trick. When Ava found him, she said Trick was already out of the building, but they'd have a contract signing next week, and as long as he keeps it together, their match can go on as he wants at Halloween Havoc. It's the right match to book here with Trick coming out of losing the TNA title. Once he loses to Saints, ideally clean, he should probably be off to the main roster. That's unless he does like a loser leaves town or something like that with Oba, just to kind of conclude their run. That could play because they still have resolved issues, those two. Though those issues were seemingly around the NXT title, so maybe you save that for the main roster when they both get up there. I'm not entirely sure. What I did find weird is that there was no spin a wheel, make a deal reference throughout this entire episode. So I don't know if these matches for Halloween Havoc are going to have stipulations. Maybe they introduce that next week, but they mentioned the contract signing here, so you would think they would do that plus the spin a wheel, make a deal. Is that going away? That was a great gimmick with Halloween Havoc. It's one of the reasons the show was so interesting. So that's really frustrating to me. Fatal Influence got a promo package about the reasons for starting the group, crowing about how they've dominated the division, been running NXT since they debuted. They contended that Jasmine Nix was the biggest problem they faced their entire time together, with JC Jane putting over Lainey Reed as someone willing to prove her loyalty, introducing her as the newest member. Reed called them titans of the industry, saying her goal was to follow in their direction. The primary reason this concerns me is not because I don't believe Lainey is deserving of the opportunity and not because they got to stop trying to make Lainey Reed happen. She's not going to happen.
Stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
But rather because JC and Fallon appear to be less near to a main roster call-up. And that on its own is not only maddening, but befuddling. SmackDown needs them so freaking bad. Henley should have been called up a year ago. Her ceiling is insanely high. I don't understand why they are still toiling away in NXT, now reforming their group. And I cannot believe Reed is in any way herself ready for the main roster. So you're not throwing her with them and then calling up all three, right? So yeah, I just don't know, man. The promo package was well done overall. But why are you, re-expanding this group when these women, as soon as JC loses the title, should both be on SmackDown? We had Zarya against Blake Monroe. Zarya backstage was angry at Sol Ruca for going after another title by entering the Battle Royal, particularly when she was not in the match herself, saying she would go at her one-on-one alone. She didn't want Sol ringside. Zarya did a cool choke of Monroe while on the ropes, but dropped her for no reason whatsoever. She also had a nice bullet-like spear. Blake grabbed a steel chair, so Sol ran down to get her girls back, even though she said she wasn't going to. That distracted the referee. That allowed Monroe to pull a hair pick out of her boot, drill Zarya in the throat. It looked like she was gigging her and trying to like kill her. And she did that while she was being lifted in the F5, which still doesn't have a name. She came down, hit beauty shot, which is the name of her DDT, by the way. And that should be way more creative for someone of her talent level. Like, she needs a better finisher than that, but she got the win on the back. I was also confused about the clip being in the boot rather than her head. I assume it could have fallen out while they were wrestling. That's why it wasn't there. This was good. It was too short, all things considered. Blake getting this win, one would think, levels her up for a title opportunity. But then, like, what about the Jordan feud? I guess we'll find out. Wouldn't be surprised if Monroe sticks around the North American title to start. Ruka later told Zarya that she should have been there from the beginning. She supports her so much. She wants Zarya to take her spot in the Battle Royal and wants them to have all the gold after winning the tag team titles too. See, now, that felt like a legitimate conversation between two friends. One realizing they were wrong, wanting to do their best to rectify the situation by sacrificing something for the other. I really enjoyed that. Women's number one contendership Battle Royal. There was an NXT Anonymous segment with Kalani and Jordan talking shit to one another in the training room. Lani really didn't have much respect for Jordan. We also saw Lyra Valkyria wearing Tatum Paxley's shirt backstage, excited to see her when the calling tried to separate them, with Izzy Dame talking about winning the match, completely ignoring that Tatum was also in the match and a legitimate candidate. Ren Sinclair was eliminated almost immediately, which was absolutely ridiculous. Why are they not using her better? Lash Legend saved the former Jakara Jackson from elimination, only to get drop-kicked into her anyway. Then Legend booted Jada Parker off the apron, leading Jada to go nuts on Xia Brookside, blaming her for putting her in that position. Lash then got picked up and eliminated by a group of women. Thea Hale got eliminated during commercial, I think, with Izzy taking out two women after the break. What's happened to Thea Hale, by the way? That's another person. Monroe ran in and attacked Ruka while she was ringside cheering Zarya, throwing her into the steel steps, stomping her against the barricade. So Zarya, who was already on the top rope, self-eliminated like an absolute moron rather than climbing back inside the ring, then stepping through the ropes to retain her eligibility, check on her friend, and get back into the match. So the final five were Kendall, Gray, Lani, Tatum, Izzy, and Grace. Lani prevented her elimination with a Kofi Kingston-style handstand, only to get her chest booted by Grace. Loved that spot. Grace is like, bitch, nuh-uh. Like, not having that. Just get out. Tatum and Izzy teamed up but got thwarted. Grace beasted all three with power moves, only to get chokeslammed by Dame, who got countered into a DDT by Gray, who got a hot run until she ate a codebreaker from Izzy and got tossed over as Tatum choked Grace over the ropes. Izzy tried to take advantage by charging both of them, but she clotheslined Grace over the ropes, eliminating both the bigger women as Tatum effing Paxley won the Battle Royal and became the number one contender.
Oh! Yes! I love that!
Look, I only got so many positive drops here on the show, and that's how I felt about this. What a massive pop for Tatum. I loved hearing that for her. This was so well-deserved. Lyra ran out after the bell to celebrate. Tatum lost her shit, tackling her in a hug on the canvas before Valkyria raised her arm and Dame was pissed as the show ended. Tatum had doe eyes, like looking at her, sweet dove, coming to celebrate with her, so excited. Look, man, we know Paxley's not going to win the NXT title off JC. The Izzy and Lyra situation, playing tug of war over Tatum, that's surely going to play a role in the match finish. And that's going to be disappointing. But then again, I mean, you never know. NXT just fooled us having Saints beat Femi at No Mercy. This is on Halloween Havoc, which kind of plays into Paxley's whole aura. What if there's a stipulation that gets added to this match? I'm still not expecting a title change, but NXT, understanding that Tatum needed to be in the main event picture, that is super important for her long term. I do wish she had won a number one contendership on merit, ideally in a rematch, but if not, actually physically eliminating the last person, the last two people. It kind of sucks that she was booked as an underdog in this way. It was basically like, oh, they eliminated each other and she just happened to win. But at this point, folks, we're going to take everything we can get. Javon Evans and Leon Slater backstage shared disappointment about Dark State ruining their match, each confident they would have won otherwise. They agreed that Dark State were just pressed after losing their tag team titles to the Hardys, who entered the picture, putting the Neophytes over as the future of professional wrestling. The Hardys promised to avenge them at Halloween Havoc, and the Young Guns promised to get their backs whenever they need it. Much later in the show, Dark State attacked the Hardys backstage, saying they messed with the wrong ones. It sounds like an obvious 8-man match to run on TV leading into that show, but it was annoying to me that Evans and Slater didn't storm into Ava's office demanding to fight these guys. As they said, their match got ruined and they were pissed. So why wouldn't they want immediate vengeance? We also needed a Dark State promo on this show to explain their reasoning for attacking. And we didn't get it at all. That was a greater sin because it made the Bound for Glory booking even that more ridiculous, considering these guys had not been aligned with the Hardys previously. There was a later segment where Hank and Tank plus Chase U were around Lyra, not a place I'd want to be, Chica, all commiserating about becoming tag team title #1 contenders after the Hardys retain over Dark State. This NXT tag team division is completely dead if these guys and the Calling are your only teams. They're going to do a triple threat, again, all-time dead division, worse than Raw, which is saying something, especially for a developmental brand, where they should be building one tag team out another out their asses just to get people on TV. None of these three teams are ever going to make it on the main roster, nor will Dark State as comprised for that matter. Only Saquon Sugars will, and Dion Lennox obviously has a great chance if he develops. So we got that match. Hank and Tank chase you, the Calling #1 contendership. This felt like a tornado match. They were just going crazy from an intensity standpoint. After Hank and Tank landed a double move with Chase U hitting simultaneous splashes, out the mud returned, chucking Shawn Spears into the steel steps, destroying everyone else in the ring. The referee rang the bell immediately after Spears took a shot into the steps, except there was no reason to do so. This was a triple threat, which naturally does not have a disqualification rule. Now, if they wanted to throw it out as a no contest after all three teams got leveled, okay, that's logical. But this was illogical, the way the match ended. OTM being back, that's hugely positive, but they're still green as grass. That doesn't exactly change what I was saying about the division being dead a minute ago. And for some reason, they're doing a 2-on-2 match, OTM against Hank and Tank, next week. They beat up three teams. I'm guessing that devolves into madness. At least let's hope. Otherwise, this dumbass booking. Fingers crossed that this is not the entree to the Dusty Rhodes Cup here, because you need some tag teams in order to run that. Or you got to put together stars as a team. Maybe you put like Javon and Leon Slater together and they go into that and they win. They become #1 contenders. They beat the Hardys. Okay, now I'm booking the damn territory here. You do that, I'm interested. But the rest of the teams in this division, man, it's dog shit. It just is. Later backstage, Evans and Slater asked Ava if she had any teams they could face at Halloween Havoc. Stax then came in talking shit with Ariana Grace by his side. So she whispered to her father's ear, Santino was there also, and got her boyfriend an X Division title match next week. This was idiotic. So you have Evans and Slater, who I just said a moment ago should be fighting the other two members of Dark State on Halloween Havoc. Like they should be getting revenge, right? Instead of asking for Dark State, they're asking for a random tag team match. And then you have Stax, who hasn't wrestled in 2 months and has actually been losing matches on NXT house shows, being given a title match. I could have sworn I was watching AEW during this segment. At least it wasn't at the PLE of the match. But this is, again, dog shit booking. It's partially a consequence of the TNA relationship, which has really impeded Shawn Michaels' creative flow. It causes plans to not be as well laid out as they should be. But it's insane for Stax to be just given this match and not have to, at a minimum, earn it in a qualifier.
Market zero!
El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. fought Lexus King, so I'm just going to end my crusade to call this guy Dr. Wagner Tresero, despite him using that name in AAA. If NXT is going to refer to him that way, okay, so be it. I will too. There was a funny argument on commentary over Booker T's booking experience as he wondered who booked AAA. King worked Wagner's knee for a while, dominating offensively until Wagner hit a Liger Bomb, Shining Wizard, and Michinoku Driver over 2 different sequences for the win. Expected result, given Wagner had been feuding with Ethan Page, a champion, so he wasn't going to lose a match like this. Wagner called out Page after the bell, so he entered saying he already got a bout made for them at Halloween Havoc. Wagner came back saying he wanted the match to be Dia de los Muertos, which Page didn't understand since it was in Spanish, so he circled back in English and explained Day of the Dead. I don't know why this isn't title versus title, but the booking makes sense. The stipulation was necessary to create an extended level of interest in the match, and at least we're starting off with one stipulation for Halloween Havoc. But again, we need more because that's the way that this show has been built recently. Matt Cardona fought Josh Briggs. Much better reaction for Cardona here than his surprise appearance 2 weeks ago. Crazy, it was his first ever match in NXT. Plus, kind of unique that he was wrestling as Cardona in a WWE ring. Cardona hit a nice flip over tope con hero early. He added the reboot and unpretty her for his wife. Briggs caught Cardona with a backbreaker over the ropes, following with a chokeslam. He wrapped a chain around his fist, but got caught by the referee. That interaction allowed Cardona to hit Radio Silence, the Rough Rider, for a great false finish. Cardona went off the ropes for another one, like he tried to do an avalanche style, but he got caught midair for a powerbomb. Briggs then avoided another unpretty her, only to level Cardona with a big boot for the win. Nothing would have been gained by Cardona winning, so the result made sense. I saw people butthurt about this. I'm not sure what you expected. Now, look, I don't believe it was necessary for Briggs to kick out of Radio Silence in a regulation match, but it did make it more fun and surprising, and I suppose it showed him strong enough to fight through that finisher. Completely exceeded my expectations from the initial match booking. Wound up being a valuable part of the show that was both fun for the crowd, getting Cardona in NXT, and beneficial for the youngster in Briggs. And lastly here, Ava announced that the men's speed tournament would begin, similarly featuring wrestlers from different brands: Axiom, Sean Legacy, Zachary Wentz, Jasper Troy. This shit sucks, man. NXT is already jamming, I almost said AAA, TNA stuff into its weekly broadcast, AAA too. But they're jamming these other brands, making the speed titles legitimate on TV was screwed up in its own right. Now you're going gender by gender because you don't have enough time to dedicate to booking them properly at the same time. This is a mistake I'm sure WWE will correct at some point, but it's tough to believe they didn't see this as a fail from the get-go. I truly believe these are only on TV because WWE is trying to sell the program to like TikTok or another, streamer or something. Otherwise, it does not make sense why these titles were not retired and why this experiment was not ended. So for a taped show, NXT was pretty damn decent on Tuesday night. NXT tape shows usually struggle in a significant way. They were able to book around TNA Bound for Glory relatively easily. They got some major matches booked for Halloween Havoc, the number one contendership. Obviously, we loved because Tatum Paxley won. So it wasn't as good as a normal episode of NXT, but it was nowhere near as bad as normal taped episodes of NXT. Overall, I would consider it, on Tuesday night, a success. Okay, so that takes us into AEW, where we had not 4, but 5 hours of programming to cover. Collision from last week, Dynamite, and Collision for this week. So what this means is when I say Collision, I'm referring to last Saturday's show. When I say Dynamite, I refer to this week's 3-hour block. I'm not going to bother differentiating between hours 1 and 2 and hour 3 on Wednesday night for no good reason. In terms of match relevancy, 5 of 15 matches this week on the go home to WrestleDream were relevant. I was probably being a tad harsh with the relevancy grades. Let's give extra credit to 2. Let's say 7 out of 15, still below 50%. And we want to be above 65% when we're talking about AEW. Let's get into it. We're going to break down everything that happened across those shows that maybe did not directly have to do with the build to WrestleDream. And then, of course, we'll break down the entire card with your AEW WrestleDream Ultimate Preview, predictions for every match, analysis of what we expect to happen. Moving forward, on Collision, Josh Alexander beat Kota Ibushi by countout. There was no reason for this match happening initially. You'll remember this was where Ibushi got injured by falling off the ropes while he was on Alexander's shoulders. AEW, for some reason I cannot explain, aired all of this, didn't clip around it. Ibushi immediately grabbed his thigh. You could see where, based on how he landed. The impact just snapped his femur. Mark Davis, super sweaty for some reason, beat up Ibushi while he was laying ringside, so that brought out Kenny Omega to save with a trash can. You'll remember that Omega is Ibushi's best friend, but this guy got badly injured. He didn't check on him at all. Later backstage, Omega recalled his history with Don Callis when Jack Perry entered his locker room. Understanding Omega's hatred for him, feeling sorry for what happened to Ibushi, but promising to get Omega's back if he ever wants it. Kenny's like, dude, you took me out of my hometown, and now suddenly you just want to be cool with me? So Jack's like, yeah, man, true, but we have the same enemies now. So Omega's like, I won't have your backs, but you can have mine. I was actually somewhat pleasantly surprised by this. Don't get me wrong. There are so many people involved in AEW, especially with the family, where a more reasonable and logical team could have been chosen to help him in this booking. It is patently ridiculous that he was willing to team with Jack at all. However, I did like his line about, okay, man, you can get my back if you want. I'm not going to have yours. That at least made it a bit plausible as opposed to completely absurd. On Dynamite, Jack was carving a random piece of wood, like he made one carving into it, backstage saying he didn't hate the Young Bucks. He's actually grateful for them, but they weren't there when he needed them and Luchasaurus was. So I'm glad he actually said something here, but like, you didn't pick up the phone is such weak shit when in kayfabe, they tried to elevate you further than anyone ever had in your entire career. And on Collision, you're saying, we have the same enemies. We hate these guys. And then on Dynamite, you're like, I don't actually hate you. I'm just angry you didn't pick up the phone for me. Like, what? The fact is, dude just disappeared off TV. He came back as a face with no real explanation. Compiling this with what he told Omega, there's no reason for fans to actually cheer for this guy, man. Like, that's just the truth. On Dynamite, Callis family had a birthday dinner for Dear Leader with Andrade and multiple other members missing. Konosuke Takeshita appeared in a tape promo saying he would win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship for Callis and the family, but as he was speaking, Kazuchika Okada turned off the TV. This was actually pretty good. It was the best character bit that Okada's done in years. The rest of the segment was a bunch of nothing. Takeshita did wind up, by the way, winning the title off Zack Sabre Jr. Excellent match. I have it as an A+, bordering 4.75 stars area. There was also a great women's match on that show with Siri beating Saray for the IWGP Women's Championship. This was King of Pro Wrestling, by the way, if you want to look it up. On Dynamite, Omega and Jurassic Express beat Callis family in a trios match. I ultimately made the tough call not to give this relevancy credit, but this is one of those where if you want to switch it, you can. While the segment aired for Omega and Express teaming, and we knew why Omega wanted to fight these guys individually, Express has issues with the Bucks, not the Callis family, so that didn't align with the reason for the team up. Unless they're just supposed to think of the Bucks as an extension of the family, even though they've specifically not been part of it since the beginning. The key in this match was Perry somewhat proving himself to Omega, so now he doesn't care about being maimed by the guy 6 months ago. The Bucks ran out, did super kick party to Express. Omega saved from TK Driver with the Bucks not attacking him. Instead, they argued. Don't they hate each other? And the faces wound up standing tall, basically 2-on-5 in the end, which was odd on its own. This was booked as a match for WrestleDream, which we'll get to in a moment. On Dynamite, Gates of Agony beat Hurt Syndicate 2-on-2. Ricochet used Spirit Gun on Shelton Benjamin behind the referee's back, resulting in a delayed cover and the win. Well after the bell, it was revealed that this was the first time Syndicate had been pinned. Really? What happened at All Out? Did they not get pinned? I think they did. So let's get this straight. They went trios match at All Out to trios street fight at Dynamite to a tag team match on TV, alternating wins each way. Why? On Collision, the Acclaimed beat Big Bill and Brian Keith. This was built on TV last week. They got into a shoving match in the ring before Anthony Bowens beat Keith. Remember when Big Bill had the featured feuds with like Powerhouse Hobbs and Eddie Kingston? Now he's back to losing low card tags. Bang Bang Gang were just speaking loudly backstage when Bill and Keith came in angry over their loss. That, I presume, is going to lead to some kind of match next week. This Ace Austin guy is talented in the ring, but man, the personality is a wet mop in these segments. You gotta hope Jay White is coming back soon because these guys are floundering. On Dynamite, the Acclaimed begged not to be teamed up again. On Collision, Triangle of Madness beat Tony Storm, Chris Statlander, and Harley Cameron. Rare one of these that had some build last week, even if it was idiotic. Harley got speared by Thekla in the finish. There was nothing else to it. Stat later told Harley she couldn't go after the tag team titles with her since she needs to concentrate on her title. Wheeler Yuta then came in for no reason. Then Storm came in and literally ripped off her shirt, yelling at her. I'm just like, what is this shit? Also, wasn't Cameron actively going after Mercedes Moné as her partner?
No, don't like that.
Jamie Hayter and Queen Aminata attacked the heels backstage after this and won, despite it being 2-on-3. You'll remember they all hate each other for no reason whatsoever. On Dynamite, Mercedes Moné was backstage now with 10 titles, calling herself the greatest of all time and Ultimo Moné, since she now has 10 titles at once, just like Ultimo Dragon once did. She celebrated becoming the longest reigning TBS champion in history as of next Friday, saying she'd be at WrestleDream, but without a match or explanation. I suppose the idea is Saray's going to come out, challenge her for one of the straps. We'll see whether that resonates. I'm personally tired of the Monet belt collector gimmick. It's so forced. The vast majority of these titles are absolutely nothing. It will be cool when, I presume, she goes promotion by promotion jobs to a bunch of different independent wrestlers. I don't think she's just going to like give them all up. The Crash Out storyline could be great. That still interests me. But these promos, all the crowing about it, it's tiresome. On Collision, Kyle O'Reilly with the conglomeration continued the Kyle shit. It was okay. Orange Cassidy then said nothing. Roderick Strong then said he hated the Death Riders. Willow Nightingale then said Jet Speed were adjacent members, so she would have their backs. And she imitated Mark Briscoe's promo closing. Willow is so much better than this man. Why is she involved in this bullshit? So we had FTR and Megan Bayne beat Jet Speed and Willow in a mixed trios match. Easily the match of the show, appropriate main event because the rest of the matches were shit. The faces did a triple stereo single leg crab spot. The finish was Penelope Ford helping Bayne hit a doomsday device as the referee was distracted. Pinning Willow here when either of the jet speed losers could have taken an L was absurd. Also, to what end is all of this happening? Why is this feud being run exactly? Harley ultimately saved Willow, so I guess they're going to be a babyface team in this tournament. It was super weird how Collision just like petered out. The show ended without any excitement. On Dynamite, Claudio Castagnoli beat Strong. No reason was given for this specific matchup. Claudio had, by the way, been absent on TV here and there of late. On Collision, Daniel Garcia and Yuta beat Orange and O'Reilly. Why these four? Why this match? Because Death Riders attacked after, so Conglomeration members saved, and they all got murked. On Collision, Bane beat Cameron. I guess this match happened because Harley saved the prior one, so we can give relevancy credit here. I originally did not, but it was weird. Megan tried to cut a promo before the bell. It wasn't much of anything. Harley kicked out of the F5 finisher, which shocked everyone except the crowd. There were like a couple polite claps. Bane is super impressive physically. To go from the huge debut booking with Storm to just putzing around the division, though, it really makes her look like she doesn't belong in the main event when she does. On Collision, Tay J beat two jobbers in 2 minutes, nothing before or after. The cover included the cameraman doing a direct shot of Anna Jay's ass. Total waste of time. I mean, other than that, obviously.
I was up all night.
The tournament still hasn't started, by the way. On Collision, LFI beat MXM TV in 4 minutes. I wanted to defenestrate myself. On Collision, Eddie Kingston beat the Beast Mortos in 8 minutes. Not as bad by any means. Certainly not good either. Hook came out after to dap him up. This literally should be going the other way. Kingston putting Hook in matches and then dapping him up after he wins when they're over. On Dynamite, the trios titles were on the line, believe it or not. The Ops retained over LFI. Katsuyori Shibata challenged for this match on Collision. The entire reasoning being that he had fought Roosh twice before. So that plus a win over the MXM TV now jobbers was somehow enough to earn a championship match. You'll remember Shibata hasn't been on TV since getting taken out by Daniel Garcia last month, yet he comes back and is not focused on Garcia or the Death Riders, but a completely unrelated team that has no interaction with the team, you know, Samoa Joe and Powerhouse Hobbs, while he was gone. This right here, dog shit creative.
0.0.
What was hysterical about this main eventing is that commentary had to explain why Sammy Guevara was with LFI because barely any of that storyline happened on AEW TV. Hangman Page was on commentary, so after LFI attacked the Ops after the bell with Roosh spitting towards Hangman, Page obviously saved. That led to Joe grabbing the AEW title from the canvas and shoving it at Page, and I guess what's meant to be a callback from 2 weeks ago. That was the entire go-home build for the main event of a pay-per-view. Insanity to me. But when you have a title match that was completely random in the first place, I suppose it's fitting in that vein. So let's move to the AEW WrestleDream Ultimate Previews. There's 8 matches on the main card, which is hugely positive, except they're obviously still charging $50, and some of those matches don't really belong on pay-per-view. And there's 4 matches on the Tailgate Brawl, which I think airs on TNT now, and it's meant to get people to buy the pay-per-view because you can get it on HBO Max. So those 4 Tailgate Brawl matches, real quick. Eddie Kingston and Hook against opponents to be determined. I don't know what surprise team would be worth not announcing. We'll see. The Faces cut a promo basically saying anyone can fight us. Thrilling. Kingston and Hook win, I guess. FTR is going to fight Jet Speed. The Heels cut a promo on Collision that was the same as every single promo they've ever cut in AEW. I'm just assuming FTR wins this match. I don't know why you would have Jet Speed win. FTR should be going after the tag team titles. Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron against Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. Tailgate Brawl. Faces win, pinning Ford most likely to establish them as a team for the tournament. At least these 2 matches were built together. That TV feud makes a little bit more sense, but there was still no reason for the heels to team up initially. Roderick Strong, Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly, and Tomohiro Ishii will fight Death Riders in an 8-man match. I assume the Death Riders will win and Ishii or O'Reilly is going to take the fall because what other option is there? You know, when those are the teams. I realize I just picked the only babyface team to win, Willow and Harley, so maybe that should end this Tailgate Brawl, but yeah, I mean, those are the matches. Those are the preview matches. Those are all fine, by the way, as pre-show matches. Let me be clear about that. Jamie Hayter versus Tekla. Now we're getting to the main card. I simultaneously love that a women's singles match not involving Toni Storm or Mercedes Moné is on the show, yet I hate that this does not at all belong on a pay-per-view card. This is a TV main event at most. On Dynamite, Hayter beat Sky Blue in a match. that stemmed from those random attacks, though at least there was a reason for it. Solid bout, all things considered. Thekla cut a promo afterwards saying Hayter does not impress her, considering she's been all around the world. Then she said she originally attacked her for no reason. She literally said, I attacked you for no reason. A few too many catchphrases and sayings by Thekla. I liked her promo style. She has some personality. It didn't really do that much to sell the match. Now, in reality, with Kris Statlander as champion, Thekla should be winning this match. You develop her as a heel. You give her an opportunity. Hayter goes down a bit. She has to build herself back up. You do Stat and Hayter at a bigger show. But, this is AEW creative, and I'm just going to assume Hayter wins the match. I don't know how else to put it. Jurassic Express is going to fight the Young Bucks in a $500,000 match. So the award element here came from a Buck segment where they were shown begging for a money match. I think 2 weeks ago. This being a money match is nonsensical considering Jack said he literally hated them. I'm sorry, no, he doesn't hate them. He just was disappointed in them, right? But he wanted revenge either way. So you're the booker. Why are you putting $500,000 on the line for a match that Jack wants in the first place and a match that is not an amalgamation of random stars? That's obviously beyond the absurdity of money matches in the first place when these people are all contracted talents who are paid to wrestle and get booked as the promoter wants. This is just idiotic stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, even if you enjoy the bell-to-bell wrestling, it's ridiculous. I don't know who's going to win this match. Jurassic Express just came back, just reformed. You should be putting them over. But the Young Bucks are the Young Bucks. They're the bigger, better team. I don't know. I guess you have them win. So I'm going to pick the Young Bucks here. I don't know. It's a meaningless match for meaningless money that does not belong on a pay-per-view card. Hurt Syndicate against the Demand in a tornado match, trios match, by the way. So just to make sure we're on the same page, I know I kind of said this earlier, but AEW went trios match won by Demand, trios street fight won by Hurt Syndicate, tag team match won by Gates of Agony, so the Demand, and now a tornado trios match, the third trios match moving down from a street fight to a tornado match after MVP already said he was the weak link and shouldn't be in regular matches anymore. Now, maybe Syndicate introduces a new member to take his place, which would make this worthwhile of being on a pay-per-view. But on its own, it really should not be. We literally just saw it on the last show, and we saw a better version of it on Dynamite. And when you talk about match and feud repetition, holy shit, is my interest in this torpedoed. You'll remember it was one of the matches I was most excited about 1 month ago, and now I'm looking at it on this card, and I'm saying, why is it on the card? So since they've been going back and forth, win-loss, I guess I need to pick the Hurt Syndicate to win, especially if somehow MVP gets replaced in the match with someone else. TNT Championship, Kyle Fletcher defending against Mark Briscoe. On Dynamite, Brodito and Briscoe beat Fletcher, Lance Archer, and Rocky Romero. This was the final match of the 3 hours. I have no idea why the tag team title challengers were not part of this, literally combining the two feuds, especially since Okada showed up when it was over, attacking from the behind, with the title, as El Clone distracted. So you had Lance Archer, Rocky Romero, and El Clone involved, but Okada didn't wrestle, and Takeshita wasn't even there. So, look, man, Briscoe, he actually deserves a mid-card title, and he should win one sooner than later. The problem is Fletcher just became TNT champion. His ceiling is a lot higher, and there's a lot of momentum behind him. So I'm going to pick Fletcher to retain the title here, but if this happened 3 months from now, I probably would have picked Briscoe to win. He did get that victory over MJF, and he should be capitalizing on that in kayfabe. I just don't think they're going to put him over Fletcher when they really see Fletcher as a future world champion, and they don't see Briscoe that way. Tag team titles, Brodito defending against Konosuke Takeshita and Kazuchika Okada. The entire build here, really there hasn't been much of one, but it's been infighting between Takeshita and Okada trying to one-up each other. I presume that's going to happen in the match. Don't forget, they already won a match in order to get this title opportunity. And we know what you say about that, Becky Lynch.
To beat the champion, to be able to beat the champion. That doesn't make any sense.
I can't imagine Brodito being as popular as they are, kind of, as new champions, with FTR potentially waiting in the wings, another heel team, dropping the titles, by the way, to one of the guys who already has, the unified title, the international title, which he isn't defending on this show. Again, another, by the way, show where AEW is putting champion versus another champion going after a title when they have a huge roster and don't need to be doing that. I have Brodito retaining the titles here. Women's Championship, Kris Statlander against Toni Storm. Okay, so the go-home build to this was a sit-down interview where they immediately started undressing themselves, literally, when Renee decided to throw off her jacket in frustration. Storm said she is the title. Stat said she's an enigma, constantly changing, an extraordinary being. Tony then grabbed her hands and got in her face, and they decided, let's just go to the ring. So rather than fight where they were, they went into the ring and did some wrestling moves. Oh yeah, Tony ripped off her top again, revealing the same red lingerie underneath. Then they stopped, and Storm dared Stat to use the title on her, so she didn't. Then they stopped again, and Stat dared Tony to use the title on her, but instead, Storm kissed her on the head. You know what? At least she didn't kiss her on the lips, because that would have been even more over the top on what they already do. I legitimately felt like I was taking crazy pills watching these segments. What the F did I witness here? What was the conceptualization of them getting in the ring like this? Why are they ripping off their clothes? By the way, it has still gone completely unexplained why Stat debuted as an alien babyface. She went to regular babyface, heel, face, teased heel with Death Riders, stayed face, and then totally random after winning the title, went back to being an alien. What is going on here?
What is going on?
The way to book this would have been Stat winning the 4-way without pinning Storm. Then you build this match to see whether Stat was a deserving champion by getting a single decisive win over the former champion. That could have, if booked well, led to an intriguing storyline moving into this match. Instead, since Stat just won the title and already pinned her, we know she's going to retain. And since she already pinned Storm, like I just said, and they did no storytelling coming in, there's zero reason to actually care about this match other than to see, is the work rate going to be good? By the way, I'm remembering that Hayter and Thekla were the other two, I think, in that 4-way. So shouldn't they be fighting for a number one contendership? If you put a number one contendership on the line in their match, all of a sudden that's worth being on a pay-per-view. Neither of them got pinned, so why is that not the stipulation? I can't answer these questions. Only Tony Khan can. AEW Championship, Hangman Page defending against Samoa Joe. I already gave you the build for this match. Samoa Joe is a completely random opponent. I believe it's going to be awesome because they're two great wrestlers. Joe always levels up whenever a title's on the line. I'm extremely excited about this match just from watching two guys wrestle. Do I have any designs on anything happening other than Hangman winning? No. He's going to retain the title. He just won it and beat Jon Moxley to do it. You're not going to take it away from him. So Hangman retains. This is the main event of the show. That's the analysis I have. But I have more because we have a real main event. Darby Allin against Jon Moxley in an I Quit match. That's why we're discussing it last. Daniel Garcia led a Death Riders promo saying he'd rather die than end up like Darby. Pac said they're literally the best of the best, Death Riders, whereas Allin is a piece of crap with cheap stunts and embarrassment to the industry. Mox then promised to smash his face the next time he saw him. So AEW has an entire faction cutting promos on this guy, yet Darby has absolutely zero backup from any of the baby faces on the roster, right? So the go-home for this saw Darby and Mox meet at an undisclosed location with a partition between them like you would see in a jail. There was a really cool camera shot of Darby's reflection looking at Mox through the plexiglass. Mox pointed out neither of them are actually going to say I quit in the match. So they're basically going to be at a stalemate. Mox basically offered him a spot in the Death Riders, to which Allin said he thinks about joining them every day. He appreciates their direction, but he doesn't respect Mox because he took out Bryan Danielson. He knows that if he turned on his brother, he can't be trusted with him or anyone else. Mox said it was a worthwhile sacrifice given they're in a war for the future of their craft. It's funny talking about wrestling as a craft, as an art form, in a storyline that involves flamethrowers and Molotov cocktails, but I digress. Darby brought up Mount Everest because now he's going to bring that up in every single promo, saying AEW represents freedom.
Are you fucking kidding me?
And that Mox is tearing apart what AEW is about. He promised to choke him out with the flag. Mox yelled it wasn't about him. Pac attacked Darby from behind. He somehow got in this facility, ramming his head into the table and then back and forth across some cinder block walls until he was thrown into the glass, dripping blood as they turned on a red light for some reason. But technically, this was Mox living up to what he said in his promo. Darby later limped out onto the AEW stage with blood still coming out of his head. So Claudio trucked him with a European uppercut. He kept moving like a zombie. So they kept beating him until he eventually crawled into the ring with the flag. He said it's never too late to say I quit. So Mox picked him up for Death Rider onto the flag, storming out of the ring. Man, they tried really, really hard here. Pac assaulted a dude on camera out of the arena. Nothing came of it legally. If you're going that far, why aren't you killing him, injuring him to the point he can't compete? Like, same thing, by the way, once Darby emerged on the stage, they just like lightly attacked him, leaving him alive enough to climb into the ring. Why aren't you getting steel chairs and kendo sticks and just murdering this dude, right? Why would you not put him through tables and just destroy him so you could actually keep him down? I was all in with the first 80% of this, just as I've been interested in about 80% of this feud. They've done a great job building the intensity in the rivalry, the hatred between the individuals. The stakes of the match, however, they're not so much about AEW like AEW wants them to be, but more about the two individuals, which is positive to me because I'm sick of every major story in this company being about the three letters. But then you get to the extremes of this, and AEW, it just can't help itself always going to unnecessary places. When you have dudes like Mox and Darby involved, and Tony Khan lets them do whatever the hell they want, there's no adult in the room to not only protect the performers, but the logic of what they put together on screen. This is the match I'm looking forward to most on the card by a mile. It should be a lights out match. That way it could main event. Darby is going to win because the Mox character can believably quit, whereas for Allen, you just can't see it happening as it would completely bury him forever. The question's going to be how they make that logically sensible when no one's had Darby's back for months and he would presumably be outnumbered here. I could see AEW like randomly booking the ops to suddenly decide they care again, take out those dudes, make it a one-on-one. But yeah, the success or failure here is going to be entirely about the booking and whether they can have it make logical sense. I guess also because the rest of the Death Riders are involved in that match in the kickoff show, they could theoretically get hurt there, which is kind of what the booking was in Inverse during All In. So they could kind of take them out early to make it a true one-on-one. If they do that, that could work. But the point is, we're going to have to wait and see because going into the show, it's 1-on-5 like it has been for months. And you have one guy in Darby who literally cannot quit. It cannot be in his character for him to quit. And a guy in Mox who really shouldn't, but at least can. So despite him having the numbers advantage and all the other things I mentioned, I have Darby winning this match, which would be fantastic. But let me also note, if Darby does win this match, and you have Hangman beating these guys, you have Darby beating these guys, they can't just show back up on TV Wednesday and continue operating as the same old Death Riders. Like, you have to have them knock down a peg, go off TV, at least have Mox go away, and the rest of the group wonder where he is. What are we going to do without him? Start losing matches and then have Mox come back in a couple months. You can't just have them lose these high-stakes matches and then just go on as if nothing has changed. So that's my hope coming out of WrestleDream. Whenever we talk about AEW, we obviously need to ask ourselves the question, is this pay-per-view worth $50? Would you go and buy it if you weren't covering the company and doing it for the podcast? I'm just being completely honest, as I always am. Many times I say yes. The answer here is no. There's no reason to buy this show outside of the I Quit match, which you could find and watch in another way. The rest of the matches to me, and again, maybe the booking says otherwise. Once it happens, and maybe I'm proven wrong. The rest of the booking seems incredibly predictable. There's a bunch of non-title, no-stakes matches on the show. And again, they're charging the same amount of money, $50, but they're only giving you 8 matches. Now, Silver King's not upset about that because I believe an 8-match card is perfect for a pay-per-view. But when you're used to getting 10 and having titles on the line, all titles defended, and having all the stars on the show, Mercedes Moné doesn't have a match. She may have a segment, but whatever. Then what are we... Kenny Omega, by the way, isn't on the show. It looked like they were building to a match for him. Then what are you really charging $50 for? This is the problem WWE a long time ago ran into. And it's a problem AEW is running into now, doing monthly shows when they really should not be running monthly shows. They should be doing 6 a year, a 7th bonus show if you want it to be Forbidden Door. That's it. They should not be running 11, 12, 13 shows a year for reasons exactly like this. It's WrestleDream. What are the dream matches here? There aren't any. And that's the truth. In terms of a pre-show expectation grade for this, I think it has a chance to over-deliver, but I'm just not hyped going into it. I'm going to say an 88 out of 100, a B+. All of you will have an opportunity to provide your pre-show expectation grades on Twitter at GettingOvercast before the show. And then, of course, after the show, you'll have an ability to share your post-show grade, which the Silver King will share himself on the AEW WrestleDream Instant Analysis. That will come out, either super late Saturday night or first thing Sunday morning. It just totally depends when we're able to actually wrap up the pay-per-view following a long day of college football. All right, folks, that ends today's edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Thanks for sticking with us through so much performance-enhancing audio. We really ran the gamut. We covered WWE, TNA, NXT brand, AEW. We talked a little bit of New Japan as well. So, man, a lot of stuff here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. So like I said, let's wrap this up. Reminder to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast across the board. Twitter and Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, and all of that good stuff on Twitter. As I said, you can vote in those polls on YouTube. When you subscribe, you get full-length audio episodes and full-length video interviews. Don't forget, here at Getting Over,
It's all about Defy.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And lastly, don't forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I sure hope you do as well, $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, exclusive news analysis posts every week. It's a free show. It's an ad-free show. Please support us financially. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Okay, another 2-hour edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. The Silver King indeed losing his voice. Still not 100%. I'm like 92. Hopefully I'm at 100 for Saturday. If not, Tuesday, when we will have your next WWE edition of the podcast. But it is officially time for me to end this and for the Silver King to sign off, leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.